This one Super Bowl, I was just on a 19-hour fast. One of my clients gave me a bag of Chex Mix edibles. I'm like, fuck it. Watch the game. I'm gonna eat the edibles, make food. It's gonna be awesome. We start cooking. I'm about to fry some wings up, and I'm like, already kind of getting hungry. My dumb ass is like, start on the edibles first. So I read in the bag, and the bag like taunts you. There's like beginners, quarter bag, intermediate, half bag. I know what I'm doing, 3/4 to full bag.
Full bag.
Your ego.
I know what I'm doing. I'm like, all right, cool, I'm feeling good, obviously. And again, mind you, I'm on this fast, so this is the first thing that my body has seen after 17, 18 hours. So I'm going to fry my first wing, and it goes, I put in my second wing, and then all of a sudden, as soon as it hits the oil, my body, my vision, everything just goes into that hot, crackling oil. I'm like in the pot. And it's just, I'm hearing like, oh shit. And then my kids are running around, I'm like, oh no!
They're in the fire too.
The Ruffled Feathers Podcast.
You're actually our second couple.
Oh,
we had
cool.
another couple on here, Jesus and Yuli,
Yeah.
and that was our mushroom episode.
Oh, fun.
We all ate
Been
mushrooms
here for that one.
No.
We discussed mushrooms. We didn't.
Drug use has been something that's always been around my life. Probably, if I'm being honest, around 14 years of age. And then it's just kind of always been around. And then they kind of got into doing it as a couple. I've never had that experience. My wife is not into that stuff, but have y'all dabbled into the
taboo?
The
yeah.
taboo? I don't think it's so taboo. So again, like I was not exposed to drugs as a young girl. Not to the, I mean, we grew up at my household watching, La Virgen de Guadalupe, where, I mean, even like weed is like, oh my God, you know, like it's the most terrible thing you could do. So like I grew up with that, indoctrination of like, hey, drugs are so bad for you. Weed is going to be a gateway drug. So I wasn't actually really introduced into it, not even in college. Like I stayed away from that stuff. It was around like professional people who are like always like in their mind thinking, their mind is going all the time. So when they're away from work, they just want to like let go. Yeah.
Get away.
Yeah. So it's people who like, again, people who are already.
And what was that first drug touch? Was it
It was weed, yeah.
yeah, weed?
Yeah, so it helps reduce inflammation, stuff like that. And so a lot of like professional, like a lot of like I don't want to say all the dental community, but a lot of times that even just the CBD helps a lot with like joint disinflammation and like back pain and neck pain. So even if you don't want to do like the THC component, that CBD is really good like to help disinflammation. So again, that's when I was like, oh, some of my colleagues are, dabbing or okay with it, and it's not that
justify it.
Yeah, and it's not. Yeah. Well, I have to justify it, right? Like,
for sure. If it's always seen as the devil.
Yeah.
And like never touch it or even think about it. Yeah. What about you, Zach?
Yeah, it's been in my life since an infant.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I smoked weed first at like 8th grade, 7th grade.
Oh wow!
Was it sixth grade? No, it was 6th grade. With my buddy, we found his dad's stash. I mean, we didn't know what we were doing. Obviously, we just knew we were supposed to light it on fire.
Yeah.
Slice the whole house.
Yeah, we're just like freebasing it.
Nice.
But
in there.
Good stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So
y'all stumbled on it.
Well, we knew about it like from older kids at the school. The school I went to was pretty, I guess like low income.
So in Houston?
No, Arizona. From Arizona
Okay.
originally, yeah. So
The outskirts of Tucson. So
small
like,
town. Small towns kind of.
There's nothing else to do.
Sex and drugs.
Yeah. It's a different lifestyle.
Pregnant at a young age.
So you
kind
get
of
entertained. Yeah.
You got pregnant? Oh.
Yeah. No. That's just our. That's a typical,
that was the whole lifestyle.
You go to
over
school
there.
and 8th graders are pregnant, kind of thing.
Yeah. See, I had friends in 7th grade. They would go get high, and they would come back all giggly. But I was just too scared to like go in the back of the school. I was like, no, guys, we're supposed to be in our classes right now. And then life happens, and then that's when I was just like, I'm gonna try this shit because life is short. Like,
yeah.
And then I went balls to the wall. Like, what's this? We got sold some fucking catnip.
Oh god.
Oh man.
We had put all our money together all week. Like, dude, we're gonna get fucking high, and we're like, all right, $10, let's get a little 10 sack. And
you get a dime piece.
My buddy's sister's like middleman it for us, and she's like, I don't know if she was in on it, but
I mean,
she got
I
you for
just saw
$10.
someone put on my social media, like, I just saw this guy birth control and he's acting high on Snapchat. You know what I mean? Like,
but
sure.
why even rip somebody off for $10?
Right. Yeah.
Well, this is the 90s. I mean,
still,
$10 went a long way back then.
Yeah, it's a whole tank of gas.
yeah.
But too, they were probably like, these fucking stupid kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess, yeah.
Teach them a lesson. And
Go get some oregano in the kitchen.
yeah, but yeah, we definitely tried to smoke it because we didn't even know.
Oh, I'm sure.
It's not doing anything.
What's the taste of it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, so I'm a big rule follower, right? Because I'm so scared of getting in trouble. It's like, so I'm more likely, like, in a state where it's legal, I'm like, oh, okay, like I'll follow. Yeah,
I'm okay to do it here.
Yes, exactly. That's the biggest thing for me. So like, and when I'm visiting friends, like in California or like even Missouri, right? I think it's either decriminalized or actually legal there. Colorado, like the active ingredient of mushrooms, what is it?
Psilocybin.
So yeah, it's either legal there or decriminalized there.
Huh.
So
Yeah, but I don't think you can go to like just go into the store and buy a bag of mushrooms.
Yeah, you have to get it in like already
Like chocolate or
pulled
something.
from.
Because I know it's big now where they sell like
That's
chocolate.
true. This
Yeah,
is
like
true.
a chocolate bar.
Yeah. But yeah, you can't get the whole thing, the whole mushroom. You have to have it broken down already.
I think that, yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
There's a Instagram account. I don't know what it's called, but they're constantly trying different recipes with mushrooms. Like they've done drinks. They mix it in like pasta or like some kind of meal.
yeah.
Mostly bakeries, baked goods. But it's pretty cool what they can do it because
I
it's
just
a
get
lot.
nervous
They
with
grind it
edibles,
down.
man.
Yeah,
You
for
just
sure.
never know. Yeah.
Yeah, and they hit you harder too. I mean, but
Well,
I mean,
if it's from a company, I feel like, they're a little bit more reputable
should be
than
regulated. Yeah.
somebody in his bathtub.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's just
I could this
the
batch.
Yeah.
it's just the recommended dose, and then you eat it, and then you could just have
You're
too
more
many
sensitive.
carbs in your system, and it doesn't hit
Yeah.
you till the hour and a half,
Yeah.
as opposed to the 30, 45 minutes as the box says. So you're like, oh, you know what?
This
Let's
is
eat another couple.
Well, that comes on to you just got to know, right? Your own responsibility at that point.
Yeah, but when you write it, when you think because
Yeah.
I've been fasting for probably intermittent fasting for probably like 8 years now, 9 years. So, but this one Super Bowl, I was on a 19-hour fast. One of my clients gave me a bag of Chex Mix edibles from Cali. So we're like, all right. I'm like, fuck it. I'm gonna eat the edibles. We're gonna watch the game. We're gonna make food. It's gonna be awesome. So we start cooking, and I'm about to fry some wings up, and then I'm like, man, I'm already kind of getting hungry. My dumb ass is like, let's start on the edibles first. So I read in the bag, and this is what I'm saying is. And the bag kind of taunts you. It's like beginners, quarter bag, intermediate, half bag. I know what I'm doing, 3/4 to full bag.
Full bag.
Your ego.
I know what I'm doing.
The whole full bag.
yeah, I fucking hammer that thing, dude. And then
What
This is for bud, right? This is THC.
this is
What was the
THC.
potency? Like 100 milligrams?
Dude, I don't even remember at this.
That's a
point.
lot, 100
But it was like a a grab bag size.
Yeah.
Oof.
So I'm like, all right, cool. I'm feeling good, obviously. And again, mind you, I'm on this fast. So this is the first thing that my body's seen after 17,
Instantly
18
just
hours.
absorbs it.
Oh, and is it? So I'm going to fry my first wing, and it goes. I put in my second wing, and then all of a sudden, as soon as it hits the oil, my body, my vision, everything just goes into that hot crackling oil, and it just goes. I'm like in the pot, and it's just I'm hearing like. I'm like, oh shit! And then my kids are running around, and I'm like, oh no! It was like, it's too much, bro. Like that was the worst moment of my life in a long time in my older, smarter, more wise age. Like I went to walk the dog like 5 times that day. Like I was just trying to get fresh air.
Yeah.
Like my heart rate went up to like 205.
What?
Oh, I believe it.
Did you check it? Like,
oh yeah, because I was like,
We had the Apple Watch. Or something.
I was borderline. I was like, dude, I might need to
Dude,
go.
that's pretty high. Yeah.
go where?
To the hospital.
You see, that's the thing. Like I've been. I think that one time it hit me that, and I know myself. So like 2.5 mgs is probably my sweet spot. 5, and most people do like. I think gummies are like 10. So I like.
10's a little too much for me.
Yeah. So
10
10
is a
like
lot.
10 is a lot. So like 2.5 is probably like where I'm good at. If I do a 10, I'm out of there. Like I don't like it. I only like it to like sleep or when me and Zach are home alone and we're just like. You know, but not for social, not for
Doing Facebook time?
Nah, bro.
not for.
I'm just laying there. Right?
Yeah.
Not for like social settings at all
Right,
because of that, right? And one time, you know, I was with a colleague, and we were going to a baseball game, and he was like, "Hey, you want something?" I was like, "You know, I don't want to be a little punk. Like I'm starting to, you know." Feel comfortable, right? I didn't even make it to the ball game before I just like had to stand still. I was like the whole street was moving. I was like, I can't do this. And he had to go to like a local bar, leave me in the middle of the street, hanging on to like this post. I don't know. Had to go into like a local bar, grab some water, come bring it out to me, and I'm drinking water. And we're probably there for like 20 minutes. And he's like, "Hey, you think you can make it to the ball game?" You know, well, let's try. So we start walking, we get in there, and I'm just like, man, I'm losing my stuff.
Yeah.
Like I had to find a little corner and sit there, call somebody, and I was like, at the time I thought this guy was like a weed expert. So I call him, I'm like, hey, I have to go to the hospital. He's like, you don't have to go to the hospital. No one's ever overdosed off of weed.
Yeah.
You're just too high. Like you will not overdose. You'll be okay. Just sit down. So I go find my seats and I'm sitting there and I'm like trying to not look high. And it's the worst thing in the world.
Because
And that's
you look more high.
Because you look
You're
more
like
high.
hyper focused.
Because my friend, I'm highly focused. And like my friend's just trying to have a conversation with me. And I'm like, please don't talk to me. Like, this is your fault. And he's like, I'm going to go get you some fries. It's okay.
Yeah.
You just eat. Yeah, you'll be better.
Yeah. It does help to eat.
Well, I've found, and I don't know if it was just because I really wanted to de-high myself. I was doing apple cider vinegar shots. And it actually, because you know, I know what the apple cider does and helps with your gut and all that. I was like, well, maybe that's going to help kind of stabilize and bring down the high. And that actually helped on a different occasion. Not the Super Bowl day, but so just, you know.
For future reference.
Just for future, if you have it around or if you want to take some with you, a little flask of ACV. Try that.
Well, we did apple cider vinegar this morning, but also because again we're fasting and it helps with gut, so we just sprinkle that in our drink, and so we're big believers in apple cider vinegar for a lot of reasons. But now we know multi-use, right?
Multi-use, it's got multi-use, yeah. But yeah, I think.
What occasion?
What?
Yeah. You said a different occasion.
That's what I was thinking. I was like, because I've used it also if I have a stomach ache. So it's all gut stuff, the ACV. So, because I follow a doctor on YouTube, and he's all, you know, medicinal, like
natural medicinal stuff. Yeah.
And his emphasis is all on vitamins and the deficiencies and stuff. So. I try to just, you know, live by that. I've been trying to be clean and eat clean because I've always been a recovering fat kid. So trying to stay away from all the, you know, candy, you know, eating out, you know.
That was throughout your adolescence?
Yeah. I was always overweight. So it's like, you know, it's time to, you know, and all the drug use I did. So I was just like, man, I fucking ran my body hard. I was like, it's time to be here for my kids and actually try to be an adult.
No, I think that's very true. I think that's one of the biggest motivators for like me, and even like the stuff that I try to, you know, encourage Zach to do. It's we have a small child and we want to have another one, and we still got to be here at least 20 more years, right? Like at least
At least.
Right. Hopefully, God willing. But I mean, that's why we're doing the fasting too, just to kind of like help our bodies like detox and you know, I was telling you about the doctor that I follow, and you know, she says that they basically spray all our food with obesogens, right? So like even if you're doing
made up though.
It sounds made up. He says it sounds made up, right? Because
that was my first time hearing it. But
so obesogens is just like a term for like certain things that cause your body to have an inflammatory response, and that inflammatory response leads to you packing on fat. Right. So like some fake sugars are obesogens. And a lot of our foods now have some form of like plastic or preservatives, and some of those things could be obesogens.
That's just a carcinogen. I mean, anything that can make you fat is basically what she's saying.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, anything can make you fat.
Right.
Drink enough. Besides water. I mean, what else?
Well, like we were talking about, like butter's good for you, but you have
everything
too much.
in moderation.
Yeah. But I think that's also the biggest difference too in today's age, because it brings me to a video that I wanted us to watch, and it's another podcast, but he's reading off some stats on like the differences between Gen Z and the millennials, because I guess we're all part of the millennial crew. I think the beginning part of it, right? How old are you?
36. I was born in 89, so
89. Yeah, we're all
maybe.
I'm a 90s baby.
Yeah.
So I'm not the
young
I'm at the end.
Yeah. This guy here. So
I'm the old buck.
Let's see.
Gen Z's teen pregnancy rate is 78% lower than 91. 31% of millennials drink regularly, only 18% of Gen Z's drink.
Yep.
A third of Gen Z doesn't even drink. This has never been observed.
Right.
They're
That's
completely abstinent.
Right.
They are more frugal than millennials. They are more health conscious. Yes, this obsession with social media and the phone, although may have produced this thing, are we not then going to credit this thing with this huge leap forward this generation's taken? All this promising stuff we know about them. I mean, I know of the anxiety depression figure, but that's to me one metric out of like 6, and they're like thriving in the other departments.
Well, you say they're thriving. That's an interesting choice of
Improving.
words. Okay, okay. On a number of metrics, their behavior is better. On a lot of the self-destructive metrics, their behavior is better. That's all true. Now, does that mean they're thriving? Why are they not drinking? Why are they not driving cars? Why are they not dating?
Why aren't they getting pregnant?
Why are they not getting pregnant? Why do you think it is? Because they're so wise? They decided, you know what, these are risky.
Because they're not with other people.
They're not doing anything.
They're not being
If you're just on your bed all day long scrolling through social media, then you're not going to be doing any of those things.
Dang. Was that Dax? That wasn't.
Yeah, that was Dax.
Dax?
Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't even know he had a podcast, but I had came through that through my reels, and it brought me to the drug use, and it kind of, the reason I pulled that video is because I had seen that stat about Gen Z is having less sex than we had. They are drinking less than we were.
Fucking nerds.
Yeah, well, that's losers. But that's kind of where I was getting at it with. It's just like we lived a social life. We didn't live a social media life, and this is the issue that I have with today, where there is positive stuff that comes with the social media stuff because we get to learn more. But you know, what is it doing too when you're staying in it longer?
Yeah.
And I think that's where we're at, where we're constantly having arguments about real life shit, but most of these younger kids that we're having arguments with or have disagreements with us aren't even living real life shit.
No, they just see it on social media, and they're taught like this. It's like, I don't know, ideology, and then they think they know everything, but they don't actually.
Everyone thinks they know everything at that age, right? Like, I think that, again, when I was growing up, I felt like I knew everything. And I was like, oh, man, I was done before the age of 25. I've said that before. I just don't think kids are fully adults until they're 25. Their frontal cortex is still being developed until they hit that age. And then I think they get a little bit more set in what their true thought process is. Now, I mean, that's actually kind of, again, like I said, a double-edged sword, where that social media is giving you a lot of like information, and you can be more health conscious. You can have like more resources that help you kind of mitigate some of those things. But I think it's also from anxiety, like they were saying. They have some of the most, like, the higher anxiety.
Yeah.
So that they don't want to go out into the world. And
What's
I
that?
actually don't want to go out to the world anymore. I did it so much when I was in my 20s. People freak me out now. I don't want to go to the rodeo as much as I used to. I don't want to. There's shootings everywhere. I mean, like, I'm getting to the point where I feel like I'm also more anxious, right? But I mean, that's...
But you lived that life where you went out and went to the rodeo
Experience,
and did these
like,
experiences.
because it really is
That's-
experience.
yeah.
Right? It's actually going out there, living it,
Yeah.
living the moments.
But now we
being
all
like,
look-
oh shit, that shit was scary. I made it home. These people don't have those. You know?
Yeah, but that's the thing. Like, I look back now and I'm like, how? I told Zach all the time, he'll tell me another story. Like, randomly, we'll be sitting there cooking. He's like, man, ha ha ha, I remember this time and it's the most wild story. And I'm like, how are you alive, dude? Like, you know what I mean? Like, how?
Exactly,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
you have. I mean,
It's the
But now I'm
social
okay with my son
experience, yeah.
not doing those things. I'm like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm okay with, you know, I think it's also, I look back and me and my best friend, Miss Carol, who me and her did some crazy stuff. Like, we talk to each other all the time. We're like, man, how did we not die that day? How did we not get abducted? How do we not get run over? How do we make it home? Now you hear all these, like, Netflix documentaries about how people didn't make it home, right? And I think that also plays into it, not just social media, but, like, now they can see all these horror stories, right? It makes you not want to.
That makes
go
it,
live-
that
yeah.
amplifies the risk.
The fear, yeah.
Or the possibility of something going wrong, you know?
I think that's the right word. That it amplifies it, because I think the risk was always there.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
100%.
And-
yeah.
And it is to all of us to this day. You know, it's always there. Anything can happen at any moment.
It's the
But-
catchphrase, unlock new fear, right? Like,
Yeah.
or new fear unlocked, right?
Take
You see
risks.
one more thing and then boom.
Take chances,
Yeah.
you know, but also the grace of God, you know. I mean, because we as young kids, the front lobe's not developed. We don't have that safety first.
Yeah, we don't.
You know, so we're just kind of like, this is gonna be fun. It's gonna create a memory and a story to talk about later. That's what matters, you know.
Yeah.
And then if we make it, it's something we can laugh at. If not, it's
And
something
a life
like-
lesson, though.
Yeah, if something
Yeah.
went wrong,
Right.
it's a life lesson. Somebody suffered, but we learned that. We went
I
through
think
it too.
that's
you know?
a part of life that you do need.
Yeah.
You know, that everyone needs to go through some sort of strife, some conflict.
A lot of it.
Some real life,
I
think a
real
lot
life
of it,
experiences. Yeah.
Within, you know, you don't need to be out there gang banging.
Right,
Right,
you know,
right.
But, you know, just living with your friends. Because when I was growing up, I got to see how it can be like with at home and staying online. You know, we were going out, and then all of a sudden the internet came out, and I didn't go out as much. You know, we used to go ride bikes, and instead now we're at home playing RuneScape. I
Yeah.
don't know if you're.
Oh, yeah,
It's
yeah.
an online game. You know, we're just
Yeah, because
hours and
once you
hours
can play
on-
with people across the city or
Yeah.
the state, you know.
And then my mom was like, you know, you guys want to go ride bikes today? You go out and take the 4-wheeler? We're like, well, I got to get this next level.
Yeah.
And then you know,
We're on another planet right now.
yeah. So
Yeah, that's true.
and now it's
Okay.
even like tenfold.
Yeah, because I mean, we were talking about like being hunters and gatherers. Like you had to go out and learn how to survive. You had to go do these things to you know, feed the family, feed the village. You had to know what the dangers were because you experienced the dangers, and that's why we're seeing these anxieties in these kids. In my opinion, is because they haven't felt any of the real dangers. The real dangers they're feeling is someone speaking mean to them, and that
Yeah.
Or
is-
holding them
is-
accountable.
But I feel
Right.
I feel like so we talked about this before where like there's the bullying, right? And like how much bullying is acceptable and how much isn't, right? I feel like, you know, it's funny because after I was on the podcast with you, I had a patient come through and someone was joking on him about his teeth, and guess what he did the next day? Scheduled an appointment with me, right? And so
Right.
again, I was like, wow, like how just a little bit of
push,
of
Yeah.
a push, even like in a
Uh-huh.
joking way, will like kind of restructure someone to maybe do some self-care, right? And so not necessarily bullying super, you know, maybe bullying can be effective if it's done in like a loving way, right? However, you know, if it's like you said, physical, or if it's
Abusive.
abusive
Right.
or manipulative, at that point, I think you need to kind of
reassess.
I wouldn't call it bullying because bullying
Right.
indicates like you're actively trying to do harm, whether it's physical or emotional.
Mental.
More like a constructive criticism, be like within a
or
joking
or
manner.
even
Yeah.
a harsh joke.
Yeah.
A
you
harsh
know?
joke. Yeah, I think that again, that's more of a
amongst
harsh joke.
like friends, you wouldn't go up to somebody on the street like, "Dang, your teeth are jacked, bro.
Yeah.
Fix that shit. Here's my wife's card."
Yeah.
You know.
You would do that.
I would
That's
just
a form of
stare
marketing.
at
That's
it.
still effective. It's still effective.
Yeah.
See, like the patient told me that, and I was like, man, I would have been like me personally. I know I would have been upset. He's like, nah, we just rag on each other like that. Like that's just a real guy, like I think way of like how like women can be a little bit more passive aggressive, and I feel like we overthink what someone is telling us. Was that out of love or was that out of like meanness to like embarrass me in front of everybody, right? You know what I mean? So for guys, it's just like, oh man, we're just
Like,
playing
it's
around.
not that deep, bro.
If you- yeah.
No, it's like that fool does think my teeth are fucked up. It's that easy.
Yeah.
But it's also like, I mean, me personally, I'm a firm believer that like I need to be told that, right? Like, I'm okay with being informed of something like that, like something that could be fixed. Obviously, if I have a defect that I can't change it. But something that can be worked
Addressed
towards or addressed or changed.
Like if I got a booger in my nose,
Yeah,
just tell me,
tell me.
bro.
Yeah, like the
Don't
other day,
walk around.
you said
you
like I was
wanna
talking
bully
to a
him.
bunch of people, dude. Like I was talking to a bunch of people before she came in, and she comes in and she's like, "Hey, you got a little something." And I'm like, "Ah, shit!" Like,
Yeah.
thank you.
Nobody told
but
me.
everybody else was just let me just have
Yeah.
it. Like I'd rather be told. Like, I mean, I don't know if that's just me, but then the sensitivity of like, oh well, I don't want to make them feel bad. I think that's kind of like you're
that's
kind of
like-
selling your
Yeah.
neighbor short.
Yeah. Even
I
just
agree.
telling someone you have something in your tooth. You know what I mean? Like some people are even afraid to say that because it can be a little bit too confrontational, and I think it.
You don't want to embarrass them.
Yeah, you don't want to embarrass them. Yeah, which is.
But it's like they're embarrassing
silly.
themselves talking with a
Yeah,
piece
because
of
they would
lettuce
probably
and
take it
spinach.
off. Yeah, they would probably take it out if you.
Yeah.
If
Well,
someone
they would
was
rather
letting
let
them-
somebody else suffer the embarrassment than them having to step outside of their bounds, right? And tell somebody, hey,
But I think that it keeps going back to that, like you're not testing your limitations to
like
discomfort.
your social. Yeah.
Yeah.
you need to test yourself or
Yeah,
be
and
tested.
Yeah, and I think that's where the reason that video hit me was because I see it because I'm a tattoo artist, right? So I tattoo all types of people, ages, personalities. Trust me, yeah, we're fucking crazy animals, but I do see it the most with the younger cats where they'll hit me up on Instagram like DMs like, "Bird, your fucking work's fire, bro. Fire emojis, 100s everywhere." I'm like, I want to get tatted up. Like, what do we need to do? And I was like, oh shit, yeah, come through the shop, man, and we'll set everything up. We'll talk about your ideas or whatever. I'll be here on Tuesday. I bet. I'll see you Tuesday, Bird. All right, cool. Tuesday rolls around. Individual walks in. I'm here to talk to Bird. Oh, what's up, man? I'm Bird. He's like, oh yeah, I was talking to you on Instagram. About what? He was like, oh, about the tattoo on this. I'm like, oh yeah, what's up, bro? How you doing? Because I'm remembering all the emojis and stuff.
You think they're gonna come?
Like,
with
I'm
that?
thinking they're gonna
The
turn on.
energy
Like,
was
yeah,
different.
yes. But the whole time is just like, I want to get you here, and yeah. And I'm like, all right, well, and I'm always like, I match energies,
Right.
so I'm not trying to be over.
Yeah.
Because then I also know like if like his energy is more chill. I would be more chill with you. I'm not going to be off the wall.
Yeah.
Me and Pablo's energy is different to yours, and so I match theirs, and I'm like, all right, cool, man. We set up the appointment or whatever, and they leave, and then it never feels like 10 minutes later. It's like, bro, it was fucking cool meeting you, bro. Like, and then they send the DM. And
Yeah.
it's
Feel more
like,
It's
comfortable.
completely different. Yeah.
Yeah.
More comfort behind the screen for sure.
yeah.
But
And
that's a condition that's like ruining humanity. If you think about it, it really is, because it's like there's nothing like a one-on-one,
Yeah.
in the present, conversation, vibing. You get to really. But it's like if you don't have that, I don't know if it's taught or if it's just done through experience, right? Because I used to be a very shy person where like I would be like, man, I'd rather just not talk, or I'd rather just keep to
Well, it
myself.
is a learned skill. It is a skill that you learn, to socialize.
Right, yeah.
I mean, naturally we're social creatures, but in order to, like, feel comfortable and have a good I mean, you have to actually do it.
Yeah, you gotta keep putting
Yeah,
yourself out
you have
there.
to,
Yeah,
you know,
you have to make mistakes, right? Because that's how you learn from.
So
okay, don't
they
do
learn
this.
I feel though like now
online.
mistakes cost people probably their entire lives, right? So what they're afraid of is going out, someone filming an interaction or someone filming something, and then it goes sideways quickly, right? And now people aren't as forgiving, right? So I think that
Well, now it stays forever.
we used to
on
be
the
able to
internet.
have conversations at school, and again, like we probably grew up in the time where social media barely started becoming a thing. I don't think I had, a solid Facebook until college and really started spending time into like, grad school. So we had this time where we could just really be ourselves without fear of someone recording or us hitting these like huge repercussions. And so again, I think that the younger generation does have to deal with that. So did y'all hear about the Galveston senior year skip day?
Mm-mm.
There was like 2,200 kids that went to senior skip day.
Like recently?
Like probably like a month, within the last couple of weeks. They had so many arrests. There's people who brought guns. It was crazy, right? And then everything is filmed. You see these kids like being thrown on the ground. And I think that again, sometimes kids see that and like, yeah, I'm not gonna go to senior skip day next year, right?
Yeah.
Because it went so wrong last year,
Yeah.
right? Instead of just being able to like, hey, we should go and we should just have fun. No one bring guns, right? No one drink and
Who are these kids?
It was a lot. So it was across. It wasn't just like one high school.
2,200 kids.
It was
That's
across
a lot of people.
districts.
But they were dumb about it. They're like
Yeah.
posting it online, like, "Hey, this is the day. Everyone, we got this school. We're all gonna do it."
They
Obviously,
met at
people are gonna
Buc-ee's.
find out.
That was their
Right.
starting point.
on
They
social
went.
media.
But see, again, they're not experienced socialite creatures. They're just, like you just said, everything's done online, and that's, I mean,
They don't know the outcome.
right. Like if
They
I'm
don't
gonna
know
do
what could
something
happen.
wrong, I'm not making paper trails everywhere or electronic trails on it. You know.
Well, and she was saying like, you were young once too. I'm like, yeah, and I did a lot of dumb stuff. But if my friend said, "Hey, we're gonna go and we're gonna do this with a whole bunch of other seniors. There's gonna be 2,000 of us.
I don't think
Let's
anyone
all bring
expected
some
2,000.
drugs.
Yeah.
We got a couple of rifles.
Yeah.
Bring a shotgun." I'm like, no.
Yeah.
I mean, I like to think that I would say no. 2,000 of us, we're gonna get caught,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and we're all gonna be drinking, and we're gonna have the shotguns.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
Yeah.
Let's just go out to the desert and shoot our
Yeah.
guns there and get drunk
Yeah.
on the
Cool.
senior skip day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But see, the thing about Gen Z thing, it's like
That's the difference right there.
they're and I mean I think it's all the generations really, and especially as a young human, you experience a lot of fear of judgment, right? So then a lot of the times you participate in things that you don't want to, or even if you think it's a bad idea, you're like, well, everybody's doing it. And I think that's the kind of like a human condition that we have. We're followers. We want to
we're
be
herd
part
mentality,
of that.
yeah.
Yeah, So then you get caught up in that shit, So like to kind of go back to what we were saying, like my first experience with weed, I skipped 7th grade. I've never skipped in my life, and I was with two of my boys, and we left, and I was like, hell yeah, it was like 4th period, and then I'm following them in Lanier Middle School. I don't know if y'all know where Lanier Middle School is. So it's like right in the middle of a neighborhood, right? And there's like a couple of blocks down, there was a house that they just go to, and I'm thinking, okay, this is one of their houses, they just went inside a garage and just started smoking. They had a little table and shit, little tires to sit on.
Isn't Lanier a really good school?
Yeah,
Like
well,
a
it's
really good
supposed to
institution?
be, but
Yeah.
not back in my
Oaks.
time. In
Yeah.
my time, we had all the gangbangers and stuff.
Ah.
But to make a long story short, 20 minutes later, we hear banging on the garage wall, and it's HPD. HPD, get out of there. Dude, we got pulled out of like a little bitty hole where we snuck in from, and like guns drawn. They're like, get on the fucking ground. And that was my first experience, dude. And I barely took one hit, and I was like, oh fuck, dude.
Yeah.
We got arrested. We went to juvenile. I mean, obviously my parents and one of my sisters that was from Mexico happened to be in town. And she was just like she was the worst one, the worst enforcer. She was just kind of like, you should stay in there. I would have left you in there.
Yeah.
But that was traumatizing, So it caused me to think twice about skipping school once and then smoking weed.
How old
that's
were
what
you?
I'm saying.
7th grade, dude.
So like he was probably
maybe
like what, 11, 12?
11,
Yeah.
12.
Yeah, see,
Yeah.
in that situation,
It's
I would, as a cop, and who's probably a father too, you're just smoking weed. I would have just called the parents.
Yeah.
You don't have to take them.
Yeah, take us back to
That's
school.
just on a personal level, but
Yeah.
the cops, they got to
Yeah,
do it.
But
And,
also-
and the reason being was, I think the owner of the house was the one that wanted to press charges.
Mm.
He was like, kind of like, no, this shit ain't cool.
So I think we're in today, like I wanted to bring up the war in Ukraine because and just all the loudness that's happening right now, because I just feel like as an independent thinker, as someone who always just wants to get all the information and then decide what an opinion should be, or sometimes I don't have an opinion yet still. Since Trump's taken office, I feel like it got loud again. Like everyone's buzzing around, like, oh, what's he doing now? What's he doing now? Like, he was mad he was being mean to Zelensky and in front of all the cameras and stuff. And I personally, I don't know about you guys, I had a Ukrainian girlfriend at one point, but that was the most I had known of Ukraine up into the past, several years. So I have a little 3-minute video on this guy's named Jeffrey Sachs. He's a very, I think, centered person on saying how the whole Ukraine thing came to fruition, because I feel like most people don't know really the history of how Ukraine became such a big issue today. And if y'all want to check this out with me. And
not an attack by Putin on Ukraine in the way that we are told every day. This started in 1990, February 9th, 1990. James Baker III, our Secretary of State, said to Mikhail Gorbachev, NATO will not move 1 inch eastward if you agree to German unification, basically ending World War II. And Gorbachev said, that's very important. Yes, NATO doesn't move, and we agree to German unification. The U.S. then cheated on this, already starting in 1994, when Clinton signed off on basically a plan to expand NATO all the way to Ukraine. This is when the so-called neocons took power, and Clinton was the first agent of this. And the expansion of NATO started in 1999 with Poland, Hungary, and Czech Republic. At that point, Russia didn't much care. There was no border other than with the Königsberg, but other than that, there was no direct threat. Then the U.S. Led the bombing of Serbia in 1999. That was bad, by the way, because that was the use of NATO to bomb a European capital, Belgrade, 78 straight days to break the country apart. The Russians didn't like that very much. But Putin became president. They swallowed it. They complained. But even Putin started out pro-European, pro-American, actually. Asked maybe we should join NATO when there was still the idea of some kind of mutually respectful relationship. Then 9/11 came. Then came Afghanistan. And the Russians said, yeah, we'll support you. We understand to root out terror. But then came 2 other decisive actions. In 2002, the United States unilaterally walked out of the Anti-Ballistic Missile Treaty. This was probably the most decisive event, never discussed in this context. But what it did was trigger the U.S. putting in missile systems in Eastern Europe that Russia views as a dire, direct threat. In 2004-5, we engaged in a soft regime change operation in Ukraine. But in 2009, Yanukovych won the election, and he became president in 2010 on the basis of neutrality for Ukraine. That calmed things down because the U.S. was pushing NATO, but the people of Ukraine on the opinion polls didn't even want to be in NATO. They knew that the country is divided between ethnic Ukrainian, ethnic Russian. What do we want with this? We want to stay away from your problems. So in February 22nd, 2014, the United States participated actively in the overthrow of Yanukovych. A typical U.S. regime change operation, have no doubt about it. And the Russians did us a favor. They intercepted a really ugly call between Victoria Nuland, my colleague at Columbia University now, between her and the U.S. ambassador to Ukraine, Jeffrey Piat, who's a senior State Department official till today. And they talked about regime change. They said, who's going to be the next government? All of this is to say, the U.S. then said, okay, now NATO's really going to enlarge. And Putin kept saying, stop. You promised no NATO enlargement. It's been, by the way, I forgot to mention, in 2004, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Bulgaria, Romania, Slovakia, Slovenia, 7 more countries in the not 1 inch eastward. And then, okay, it's a long story, but the U.S. kept rejecting the basic idea, don't expand NATO to Russia's border in a context where we're putting in goddamn missile systems. After breaking a treaty, 2019, we walked out of the Intermediate Nuclear Force Treaty. On December 15th, 2021, Putin put on the table a draft Russia-U.S. security agreement. You can find it online. The basis of it is no NATO enlargement. I called the White House that next week after that, begging them, hate the negotiations. Putin's offered something, avoid this war. Oh, Jeff, there's not going to be a war. Announce that NATO's not going to enlarge. Oh, don't worry, NATO's not going to enlarge. I said, oh, you're going to have a war over something that's not going to happen? Why don't you announce it? He said, no, our policy is an open door. This is Jake Sullivan. Our policy is an open door policy. Open door for NATO enlargement. That is under the category of bullshit, by the way. You don't have your right to put your military bases anywhere you want and expect peace in this world. They turned down the negotiations. Then the special military operation started. And 5 days later, Zelensky says, okay, neutrality. And then the United States and Britain said, no way. You guys fight on. We got your back. We don't have your front. You're all going to die. But we got your back. As we kept pushing them into the front lines. That's 600,000 deaths now of Ukrainians since Boris Johnson flew to Kyiv to tell them to be brave.
Damn.
So complex issue.
Yeah.
I'm one of those, if I don't know the history on something, I'm not going to just go advocate for the war in Ukraine. Because that's all we've been hearing. Like, we need to go save Ukraine and Russia's bad. And again, I've never been one to like choose a side on something that I know nothing about. So I've just remained neutral. I'm more of the point now in my older age where like we've seen enough shit to where like maybe fighting isn't always the first answer. So I'm more on the like, let's just talk about this shit and then figure things out. But have y'all done any personal research or anything on Ukraine and this whole situation? And
No, I'll be honest. I have not followed too much in regards to. So this is the most information in a concise manner that I've gotten. Pretty solid information, because you see again that it's just been, regardless of what powers have been in our government, it's just kind of been a steady, since the 1990s, push towards conflict. Again, I'm not surprised. We just had this conversation yesterday about how the U.S. loves to flex their military, loves to. And Zach's response was like, yeah, we have it. He, again, because he's military, he's like, you flex your power, right?
In a response, but
right,
just to a threat, you know. But this isn't the U.S. flexing the military power. This is the U.S. flexing our political power and to push another country into war for money.
Right. But yeah, for money. So
yeah, I mean that I'm not surprised. It's classic U.S. We've done regime changes in South America. You know, I mean Asia,
all over the
for our
place.
benefit, right? So always for our benefit at the expense of someone.
Not necessarily for our benefit, for their benefit, for the the political figureheads, their benefit.
But then they all vow to us, right? I mean, they vow loyalty to us, right? Like that's usually what it turns out to be.
Yeah.
Because what this video missed was that Clinton and Putin had a meeting, and Clinton asked to be part of NATO. And Clinton, it was during the time that they were expanding, so Clinton was like, "Oh yeah, I think we can do that," you know. And like he kind of like left Putin with a hope of saying like maybe we can join. And like 2 days later, Clinton's administration called and said, "Yeah, we're not going anymore."
Yeah.
Past that one. So you know, I mean that has to leave a bad taste.
Yeah, I think overall, like little things. It's not like the one straw, right? It's the consistent. You know, I think also putting potential threats, right? Not very subtly. Like you're putting missiles in direct reach of your borders, right? You're gonna feel some type of way, right? If all of a sudden you see that, you know, countries on our borders are starting to.
Well, we had it with the Cuban missile crisis in Cuba with JFK here, and I think.
And also again with the little boy that almost drowned that the dolphin saved. Remember that? That we almost didn't want to give him back because he had his
Milian or something like that. Ilian.
It was crazy because we were like, we're not giving him back, and Cuba's like, you better give him back. Yeah. And so again, you see that like tension rise over again even a small child. So no
they
one
wouldn't have cared about it if it wasn't under that situation.
Right, for sure.
Like, yeah, keep
the
them.
Optics.
Well, no, but so the U.S. has if you come, what's the policy? If you come from a communist country and you seek asylum, you're automatically granted asylum in the U.S. So he hit the shore, and that's why technically the U.S. should have granted him asylum here in the U.S.
But Clinton sent him back. Yeah. He got sent back. Well, because this is my argument. Because we just said like the U.S. flexes its military power, but to me, it's not the U.S. flexing it. It's our military industrial complex where they create revenue through war. Like it's not benefiting any of us here in the States, but it is benefiting the businesses that are in
they get kickbacks,
right?
Hurting us because they're sending all of our money
and our troops
to support
or whatever the case may be. Like, and we're just being used as pawns, and that's why they just saw the expansion constantly going through, and then too, like I'm a firm believer in Project Mockingbird, which was a CIA operation where they put people on news anchors on payroll, reporters on payroll to Mockingbird to chant the same chant that they want to be chanted. And when we see with today's media, what is today's media saying? It's like, oh, Ukraine, we must save Ukraine. It's Russia's bad. And that's, the birds are singing that every day. So people are putting up their flags on their Facebook profiles there, yeah, we stand with Ukraine, but the story's deeper than that, always, especially when it comes to war. And we're being led to these directions that are they're not beneficial to any one party, just the people at the top.
So why wouldn't you think that we have to not stand with? I mean, we put Ukraine in the position, right? Why wouldn't you stand? Again, they said that they had their back. So if you told them, hey, we have your back, keep fighting, and then we don't have your back, right?
Well, they never intended to have their back.
Yeah.
They intended just for them to die and us to make money off of them.
Well, too, it's not talked about into this video, but Ukraine was considered one of the most corrupt governments in the world. Yeah. So they didn't even want the UN wasn't even talking about having Ukraine in, because they know the corruption in there. And then we can go into that, the Hunter Biden stuff where Joe Biden's son was on the board of one of Ukraine's top energy companies, and yet he's got no background, A, being in the board, B, in energy. So C, the only background he has is that he's this man's son. So he has this direct access to what we already knew, or what was already said is a complete corrupt government. So like there's so many channels to these, situations that are happening in real time. It's hard to be like, all right, why are these politicians now chirping we have to save Ukraine? Is there something in Ukraine that they've been washing their money for these politicians? Because there's lots of words on, we had a lot of chemical facilities in there learning on COVID and all this other stuff. And so like Ukraine's not this perfect place either. But that's what sucks, because we're being pawns in the scheme.
Yeah, but also, again, to me, I'm not thinking about what the politicians are doing. I'm not thinking about, who's making money or who's not making money off of this. What I'm thinking about is the civilians. Right. The civilians who end up, losing their livelihoods, right? Their family, their lives.
Yeah, from a humanitarian aspect.
From the humanitarian aspect, people who have no idea about. I mean, like I said,
send them money, your own money.
Some people,
go over there.
Some people did. Like, again, some people felt very strongly about it that they did. And again, I think that's why sometimes people do, show their support, and some people do just put the little flag on, right? But some people actually put their money where their mouth is, and paid to the air. So what they were doing, what I saw a couple of my friends do is that they would pay for Airbnbs in Ukraine, knowing that they were not obviously going to go to Ukraine in the middle of a war. But that money that money that you were paying into the Airbnbs was directly going to families that probably needed it at that time, right? Again, don't know any other efforts, but I knew a couple of people that did do that. We didn't personally do it, right? But again, to me, I'm not thinking about the politics. I'm thinking about the small kid, right? That's running away with their mom and dad, Yeah,
because so for instance, my feeds don't show me anything about Russian people getting hurt. Yeah. Families getting destroyed. People losing their lives. Well, my feeds are all Ukrainian. Oh, poor Ukraine. Look how bad they're getting.
Well, no, apparently the Russian
war is war.
The Russian troops didn't know what they were doing. They were told that they were doing an exercise.
The Russian troops?
The Russian troops had no idea what they were doing. They thought that they were doing this is what I saw on my feed. And again, it could be true or not true, but I saw that a lot of Ukrainian families were taking in some of the troops and feeding them because they didn't know that they were actually going to start war. They thought that they were just going to go do a training exercise. And so families of the troops had no... Yeah.
But, I mean,
and it could be alleged, because it's like,
But that's not...
Allegedly, yeah.
Putin, I think he's an evil dude, but he's not crazy. He's very shrewd.
Yeah.
Very smart man. And he could, that's not something that would be beyond him.
But you've seen, like, let's say that story we watched is true, that what Jeffrey Sachs was saying. He's shown, in my opinion, a lot of resiliency to not attack, right? When NATO's clearly expanded to its borders, you know, and gotten closer, and you know, all these treaties being broken by the military here.
Yeah.
So on the grand scale of things, like, we're being pushed to fight this war and fund this war, because to me it was more the money.
Yeah.
Like the humanitarian side is like, there's nothing really we can do because we're not making these decisions. To me, it was more the money thing. It was like, if we're gonna spend that much money over there and yet we're freaking starving over here, like that's not wise spending.
And it is the money. I think, you know, Russia wants out, and you know, but Putin has to save face, right? And it's not the economical for him. You know, he's losing. No, except for China. You know, China wants the war to go on because they're Russia's buying all their what is it? Not their oil from them, or is it Russia selling their oil to China?
Selling, yeah. Russia's selling the whole.
Yeah. So China wants it to keep going.
Yeah. But see, so what is the reason that the United States doesn't want Russia in NATO? Like, what is the real purpose? Like, they just don't agree with their form of leadership.
They're
like,
totalitarian. You know, you got to be a democratic state.
Oh, got you. Okay. Because in China too, right? I mean, it's not necessarily that we're enemies with China, but China and the U.S. have like a trade treaty rather more than a peaceful treaty.
But they screw us on that.
Yeah. Right. No, it's true. But we don't care because it's cheap and it's easy, right? I mean,
well, no, they bypassed our tariffs by going through Mexico.
Well, now they're about to, right? And now the Panama Canal.
Well, they've been doing, you know, for years.
Yeah.
And that's what makes the why. But anyway, yeah. So.
But how does it get into our ports? Like, how is it legally?
So they take their products and then they ship them to Mexico.
And then from Mexico.
And then Mexico assembles them.
Puts the Mexico stamp on them.
Made in Mexico. And then because of that NAFTA agreement, Mexico has, or they used to receive better rates when they would sell to us, but it's still from China, you know, and then Mexico makes their money, and then they make even more, and that's why there was such a massive tariff deficit from our imports versus their exports.
Yeah. And a lot of people don't know that. Like, I worked in the eyewear industry and clothing industry, and like, you get your Prada glasses and they say made in Italy, but really everything's made in China. Everything's shipped over to Italy. They put it together in Italy, and now they can stamp it.
in Italy.
Yeah,
it's the same thing as you get a Swiss-made watch, right?
Yeah,
right.
You know, they make it wherever, and then they ship it over to Switzerland, and they're like, little screw, bam, Swiss made.
Boom. Yeah. Technically, it was made here.
Extra
really,
15%. You know.
Yeah. So then that kind of.
Yeah. So.
To the next one.
Because a lot of people don't understand tariffs, or they hear the word tariffs, and so we want to just kind of give a little video on the meaning of tariffs and how they work. So if the good doctor over there could run the tariff video.
I'm going to explain to you tariffs in a way that you can explain to anybody moving forward. You ready? Let's say you sell auto insurance. I want you to give me clients because I need to grow my business. And we meet each other. We're friends. We're networking at a local Chamber of Commerce event. We say, hey, man, you give me one referral, I'll give you a referral. You want to kind of share some clients together? Let's do it. No problem. So all of a sudden, a month later, I've given you 5 referrals. You've given me 0. I have a referral deficit of -5. You have a referral surplus of +5. Trade deficit, trade surplus. You get the idea? Now, think about it if a year later, 5 years later, you and I are giving referrals to each other. I sit down and I look at the numbers and I said, wait a minute, Johnny, I've given you 1,100 more referrals than you've given to me. Do I look like a dummy to you? Why do I keep giving you referrals? And you give me nothing in return. You're like, well, I take care of your clients when you send them my way. What's wrong with that? That's exactly the relationship between U.S. and China. I want to explain to you tariffs in a way that I can explain to anybody.
Okay. That might have been the wrong video, but that's more explaining like the deficit.
Than the actual.
But that's what you were saying, though, right? Because you were talking about that.
Yeah, that's part of it. You know, from like what at a base level. You know, I'm not like a geopolitician or anything, but most people think that a tariff is the population paying extra taxes for that product coming in, when it's really like, if we're trying to sell a Ford to Germany, right? they're going to put a tax on that Ford because they want their cars to be sold in their country. So then the company will have to pay more for that Ford truck, which will then be more for the consumer.
Right.
And then so after a while, we're like, well, that's not fair. We're going to tax your Mercedes-Benz now, and you'll sell less Mercedes-Benz, but they're going to be more expensive for the people. And then that's why rates go up.
Yeah. And then American cars are
well, then so then we'll want to buy more American cars, right? But if somebody wants to buy that Mercedes-Benz, now it's an extra $10,000 MSRP.
So then, in a nutshell, it kind of empowers the dollar or the company, the American people.
It empowers.
It incentivizes you to
US
buy American
domestic products, right? But that it doesn't reflect directly in the stock market, right? And so then also there's like you have the labor issue, right? So Apple's investing like $500 billion or something over the next like 5 years, but you're not going to see that all of a sudden in the stock market is going to go up. But in the long run, it will be beneficial. But that's why we have to just bite the bullet right now, and then hopefully.
Yeah, because people think there's like a switch that just happens, like oh, everything's gonna be better now. But I always use the situation as if you're a family who's deep in eyeballs in debt, and you want to get debt free. And you have to start eating, ramen soup and sandwiches, or start fasting and eating nothing.
Easiest way to do it.
That's the most healthiest way.
Healthy benefits.
Your debt's not going to shrink overnight.
Exactly.
Right.
But each day, by the time 2-3 years runs around, you're back in the green, and now you can like create an economy that works for everyone.
But I think that what is really hard for, again, certain families we were talking about the garlic, just the garlic tripling in price, right? Like what's hard for some patients to kind of like swallow is that initial upfront cost, right? Because they're already barely making it. And, like we were talking about this yesterday, like Zach was like, oh, we can afford it. I was like, yeah, but I'm not thinking about us. I'm thinking about like my grandparents or your grandparents or my sister or whoever. And he's like, I take care of myself. I expect everyone else to be able to as well. And I think that, again, like I said, to me, and a lot of other people are thinking about, what about the person who can't swing it, right? Because if you ran on a platform of you're going to help groceries go down, right, but actually groceries have gone up, it's a little hypocritical, like in my opinion, right? Like if you ran on the platform of, oh, don't worry, we're going to make prices go down, and then the first thing you do is increase tariffs that, are being given to the consumer, right? The grocery stores aren't biting that, right? The big businesses aren't, incurring that cost. They're going to tack it on to your product, which is okay if it's luxury. Like, I feel like that's fine if it's a luxury item, like vehicles, like a Mercedes-Benz. Cool. The person who already can afford the Mercedes can probably afford the extra 10 grand on it, right? It's the small stuff. It's the things that, again, families are able to afford at this moment in time that, are, straddling that poverty line, and even like, lower middle class, It's
a tough bullet to bite, but, like even there was more tariff wars in like 2018. We had to bail out the farmers, because from the Chinese tariffs, and it could be something similar to that, but I mean, the question of like for the greater good, right?
But then, so foreign companies can come and make their factories here and create jobs,
and they will get out of the tariff situation,
which is legal and acceptable.
That's what NVIDIA is doing. So they're going to build all of these chip plants, and when they were originally going to do it, I don't know which country it was.
Like India or something, or it was
because of the labor, cheap labor,
right? Or like because China, it's $3 a day. They're paying their people, and so that's why Apple is. But now Trump is like, you gotta stop.
Yeah, because we talk about the personal side too all of the time, and the human side of it is like we don't realize we're paying for cheap slave labor on our cheap prices.
And I don't think it's that hard to realize, but people just don't want to think about it.
Exactly,
and that's kind of where my question was, right? Like, in just to sum it all up, is it a positive thing or is it a negative thing?
The tariffs?
Yeah.
Well,
I think you have to
depends.
watch
Yeah,
it.
short
you have
term-
to-
Some people
yeah.
are gonna lose. Some people are gonna win.
Yeah,
Short term is negative.
Yeah.
Because we are going to see a spike in
Yeah.
inflation and
Yeah.
groceries.
I think you
But
have to
long
watch
term
it,
is
yeah.
to
Long
build
term it will be
the
better,
country
yeah.
to build our.
If it plays out well,
Yeah,
right? I
right.
think that's
Yeah.
the.
But see
the-
now, with all that being said, the people that are confused and are just accepting it as a negative, like that's creating an energy, right? And then that affects the country's majority, I guess,
Yeah,
because
but
then you
that's
got a
the thing.
negative.
But the majority of people are struggling, right?
Yeah.
Like again, the majority of people are having a hard time buying healthy foods, buying, just even any kind of food, putting it on the table, right? And being able to, take care of all their bills have spiked because of inflation, whether it truly affected that particular market or not, right? So you have, your cost of living going up significantly, and then on top of that, you're adding the tariffs, right? So again, like there might be a lot of negative feelings around it for that reason, and again, you kind of have to let it play out. That doesn't mean that people have to be happy of it, about it
No, you
right
can-
this second, yeah.
Well, too, because it's multifaceted too. Because we're not just doing the tariffs thing as a means to get into a better spot.
Yeah.
When you bring jobs back, when you're fighting, it's like death by 1,000 cuts, or you heal yourself 100 different ways through different vitamins or whatever.
Yeah.
It's the same thing as here. It's like if you're only fear-mongered the tariffs, and that's all you're seeing. But if you realize like, okay, well, wait, our tax rate system changed, or we got rid of the IRS, or like now it's just a 1% you get taxed on, and like there's different ways we're gonna be also seeing change in the way the money's being taxed.
But I was trying to convince Zach yesterday to read the U.S. budget with me yesterday, the 2025 U.S. budget, and like specifically the veterans, right? The veterans package, and make sure that the things that we are super interested in are, they're not cutting the budget on, right? Because especially with, them letting go of so many VA employees.
Well, no, any president who messes with the veterans budget is committing harakiri. That's just suicide, because that's the backbone of America. Well, it's the backbone of America, the farmer. Well, but the troops really are, I think, because this is how we were raised. The patriotic, and I hope so still today. But without the troops, that's our number one, flex, right? Is the military power. So without that,
and the troops are a big part of
like
that.
during the government shutdowns, they would always tell us, "Hey, we're having a shutdown, but don't worry, we're getting paid."
Yeah,
we just it was a given.
Yeah. So again, we were definitely gonna look into that, because again, I did kind of get upset. So that's like a very small portion of kind of like what we're talking about, the tariffs. Like, how do you heal yourself, right? And I need to see the full picture. You can't just tell me, hey, we're going to rise tariffs. I need to see how you're going to offset that. Don't just give me, one solution. I need to see the whole picture. So for example, when they let go of all those VA employees, I'm like, okay, it's fine that you're getting rid of, I guess, maybe, certain departments or whatever you think is not working and what is costing the U.S. money that's not efficient. But then I need you to tell me how you're going to fix it. Because obviously the VA is already overburdened, right? Troops are already not getting the care that they need, or veterans are not getting the care that they need. There's a lot of like lack of continuity of care. And I just saw a video of a veteran, and I don't know if I showed it to you. I showed it to somebody, but he was just crying because he could not get continuity and care from a therapist. So he would find a therapist, something would happen, and he'd have to switch therapists. Something would happen, and he'd have to switch therapists, and then he has to go through that process of talking to somebody all over again about his experience and not truly ever being able to heal. That's a big problem for me, right? Like, again, like you put people in situations, and you definitely give them, thankfully, Zach is pretty healthy, right? But there are, some of his counterparts that are not doing too great, right? For whatever reason. And I think that, again, I value the troops for a lot of different reasons, but again, then you have to take care of them.
Right.
You know what I mean? And
I think, isn't that a sign of a broken system already? Like, the veteran system? Because I tattoo a lot of veterans, and I'm very pro soldier. I at one point wanted to be one, but then I realized all that entailed. But So I'll just be an artist instead. But no, and I think that's why I'm down with like just taking everything back down to the base. And it's gonna suck at first because there are gonna be some like things that fall through the cracks. You're like, fuck, well, we kind of needed that, but we'll rebuild that.
But I need to know how we're rebuilding it. And I think that's the problem with a lot of the population or like the masses, right? Is that we don't see the full picture, and you might have something great in store for us, but I don't see it yet.
But the problem too is that like the government will do a 10,000 page bill. You get two days to check it out, and then you have to freaking. But and to me, that's the inflated government that we don't want anymore.
So that's what I was like. He put out this, like the Trump administration put out this webpage where you can go online and vote for any laws that you would like to see implemented. I don't know how effective that's going to be, but one of them was, just one law or one bill page, like just one bill per.
And I think that's
one
actually
page per
pretty.
bill.
That's
One
pretty.
page per bill,
That's
yeah.
pretty efficient, right? Because then it lets the layman person be able to go see it and like truly read it and maybe understand it. And there's not all these little things that they're trying to sneak into it.
No earmark, or what is it called, the earmark or a pig earmark, where you just tack on like, extra raise for
Yes,
Yeah.
because they do
add it
that.
in there.
Yeah,
they've been doing that.
He was talking in that same video, the longer version of that video. He talks about how like there was a page or there was a bill that had like that, and in page 586 it said, "Oh, we're gonna buy bricks for Syria."
Yeah,
Like
bricks to
random
build
stuff,
like
and I
shit in
think,
Syria. Like, but it's like that's the taxpayers' money.
See, so I'm completely for that, and I'll give credit where it's due. Again, when I was watching, Trump and Biden have their little chaos debate, right? Like Biden said, "Hey, I lowered the price of insulin." I was like, actually, that was Trump. As I remember that, I was like, oh my God, like I'm super proud of this particular action, right?
Yeah.
So I'll give credit where it's due. And I even told Zach while we were watching this, I was like, that was actually Trump.
Yeah.
And then later on in the debate, like minutes later, Trump was like, actually, it was me. And I was like, how did you forget that you did that? Like,
and that's important, because it's like we're so like the majority of us are so like in the moment, so it's like and the only example I could use is Trump right now. Like people have this anger towards him and this hate towards him, or just a simple dislike of him that he's under the microscope. They're willing to find anything and anything that can be off and that can go against him or that can prove him to be a evil person or with evil intentions. Again, I'm not necessarily a Trump supporter.
Yeah.
In this situation, I would have voted for Trump if I could have voted, and the reason I couldn't vote is because I'm a green card holder.
Yeah.
But
how do you feel about that, by the way?
I have my meeting on Wednesday.
Okay.
Hopefully, I become a citizen.
Naturalized?
Good luck. Yeah,
Congrats.
hopefully.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, thanks, man.
I'd be scared for you right now.
But see, so like, and I mean, and the thing was, that,
I wouldn't be scared. You're not a criminal.
No.
You're over here. You're gainfully employed. You pay taxes. That's the way you're
American
supposed
way.
to do it.
Yeah.
Right,
But so there have been some green card holders that have been deported already. Yeah.
Well, see, I don't know. See, to me, because I only got my perspective, right? My green card actually expired in December, and that was all my fault. I'll take full responsibility of that, But then I was like, oh shit, now I need to hurry up. So I filled my application out. I sent it out. I made a couple of mistakes, so it got sent back. I sent it again. Boom, you have a date. So to me, it was super easy, So it's like I hear people saying like, "Oh no, Trump's gonna make it hard for you," blah blah blah, and then it's like I don't want to be like, "Well, no, like this is like my case could be completely separate than 100 other cases, right?"
Yeah.
But I only got what I got to go off of, and that was easy, So and this was after the Trump administration came in, So, I forgot what I was going with that, but
it's just hard to.
Well, you were saying like how Trump is, villainized.
Right.
People say he's a fascist. I mean, do you really know what a fascist is? Like,
They
do you know
don't. They
know what
don't.
fascism is?
A lot of people don't, but see, and then it's also the going back to the Gen Z or even others that are getting easily influenced by just because I simply don't like this man. Everything you say about him, I want to believe, and it's like there's stuff that
Everything
negative, because it's like there's stuff that I don't know about Trump, and then there's stuff that I agree on, there's stuff that I don't agree on. I've seen him in his past do some stuff that helps people. That like he seems like he's a down to earth, willing to help the next, but
I
also
don't know about down to earth, but okay.
well, I mean, you could
As
be
much
right.
as a billionaire would be.
Right,
Yeah.
right, because they do live a whole different life than we do.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, he'll tell you how he feels and tell you how it is. You know, he's not
But
afraid
from
to.
this election,
To a Gen Zer, that's mean.
Hurtful.
right, and,
Well,
see,
no.
and that could be the sensitivity of them because it's
Yes.
like, oh, he's just a mean old man that wants to hold people accountable. That's not right. And a lot of Gen Zs don't know what accountability
And
is.
millennials.
And millennials, right? Like you try to hold them accountable. Like, no, dude, you're messing up.
You're
and
like,
this
I
is
need
gonna
my
be-
safe space.
Yeah, and he's like, oh, you're an asshole. You're mean. You're bullying me. But I'm telling you the truth, the hardcore truth.
Yeah.
I think that again for me, and we talked about even with like AOC because we were talking about the podcast that y'all guys have. I don't like when certain people talk to me. Trump definitely talks to you. Even AOC, like as much as I, actually agree with a lot of the stuff when she talks to you instead of like wanting to have a conversation. I talk to Zach all the time sometimes, and I think it rubs him wrong, right? Because he thinks
So what do you mean by talk to you?
he you're talking
like preaching more?
Not so much a conversation,
yeah.
but like
I'm just ranting to you,
Like
basically.
telling you,
And I think that again, like if I'm just, it's almost not quite talking down to you, but like trying to shove information down your throat.
like talking at you versus
Talking,
just like
yeah.
having a
Conversation.
you know,
Okay,
back
got
and forth.
you.
And so I think that that's what rubs a lot of people wrong. It's obviously the tone. It's obviously how it, the wording or the diction that you might be using. So for example, when you say something like shithole countries, that's going to rub a lot of
Right.
people the wrong way, especially when you quote unquote come from some of these shithole countries, right? Knowing that, you could have said something like, it's an undeveloped country that doesn't offer us, any benefit. That's the exact same thing.
Right.
Right. But in a more, I think, respectful way, without necessarily rubbing someone wrong. And I think that again, like you don't have to, people say, well, he doesn't mince his words, or, he's just being, if your feelings get hurt, then you just need to get more tough skin. And I'm like, I'm going to feel offended. Right.
Yeah.
Like, and again, that has nothing to do with like,
And that's valid.
yeah.
I think my whole thing is just like people who've paid enough attention at this point are tired of the sly politician who is tiptoeing around the words to make sure you feel okay, and to get this guy come in and just be like, I don't give a fuck, like this is what it is.
Right.
If it hurts your feelings,
I think people find it refreshing.
So he's on like
Yeah.
the far end, right? So if you're at a certain position or a level, there is a certain expectation of how you should speak, right? And that makes sense, right? You're not going to be a CEO cursing at your employees, which is understandable. But also, he answers the question, and his subordinates answer that his
I don't think
secretary
so.
of the press answers her question. You don't think he answers the question?
No, I think he goes, we may not. We might see something. Like that's why he's become really famous on some of these memes, right? Or like we use his wordings on like some of these TikToks, because he'll be like, maybe we will, maybe we won't. I think I have a plan. We might be having a concept of a plan. Like that's
honesty though.
Yeah.
No, for real, because a polished politician is not going to tell you that they're not sure yet.
Yeah.
Like they asked him something about Andrew Tate, and because Andrew Tate, I don't know if y'all know, he's like the dude's dude on the internet, and he's just pretty much telling dudes to man up, to like grab your nuts and fucking go be a man, and don't be afraid of toxic masculinity. And again, he's a messenger that might be too brash for the ladies, but some of the men need to hear this. So he came back to the States. He's from the States. He had been jailed in Romania for allegedly human trafficking, but there were no charges drawn because there's no evidence on it.
Like if you saw a video, like you know who he is.
I know who he is, but I just was curious why he had been arrested.
Yeah, it was for human trafficking charges. They dropped the charges because there was no evidence, and the girls that threw the charges on him were clearly on videos, like invited over there. But so Ron DeSantis over there, they start like investigating him, take all his electronics when he pulls up.
Because he came back to the States.
Yeah.
He's back in America.
So this was a big story in Florida. So they asked Trump, like, well, what do you think about that? Or what are you gonna do with Tate? Like this? He's like, well, I don't know much about it, so I can't speak on it. And to me, again, like most people this day and age, if they read a headline, they're gonna give you the opinion off the headline they read, and then they're gonna make the situation worse. I appreciate that out of someone because I feel like Trump is the wrecking ball that we need right now. Whoever goes after Trump is gonna be the finesse person. Like, all right, let's kind of like, go through all these hard situations because now they've been busted up and we've got the direction. Now we can kind of fine tune everything. And Trump's not going to be the fine tuner. He's just not.
But I need the finesse. And I think, again, like I say I have to see like the big picture versus just chopping everything down. And I think what you like is that he's chopping everything down, right? I need to see the rebuild. I need to see ahead of time. I need to see the plans, right? I wouldn't just let someone come wreck my house and not see what the plans are for my house.
Well,
I wouldn't just come someone demolish part of my kitchen and not know what my kitchen's going to look like afterwards. You know what I mean?
Right.
And if, again, because I'm a planner and that's just who I am as a person, right? I think that for a lot of people who are Trump supporters, they just want to get it going, which I get. Like you just start tearing everything down.
Because we don't live in we have a 4 to 8 year president, right?
Yeah.
We're not like China where they just stay in power for as long as they want, or Russia or all these other places. So we only have this small window to create the change. So that in 4 years someone else can come in and kind of finesse everything.
But if in 4 years there's not enough time for him to fully lay the foundation, right? Because the next president can come back and rescind all. That's probably why it's so hard to get the peace treaty right now with Russia, because if he goes into an agreement. What guarantee does he have that?
Obviously, we just saw in that first video, everyone just backs out of everything.
Exactly.
And I think that, again, that's why having a conversation between blue and red and becoming more purple and trying to actually just get stuff done versus division is super important.
Yeah.
Right.
So when you use stuff that is divisive in nature while you're speaking in front of forums or in front of your constituents, and it causes more division between the population, that's how things don't get done, because you have this far right, far left, and they all want extremely vastly different things.
Yes, and that's the problem.
Yeah.
Because especially in our nation, right? Because if in our nation we could stay in the same lane with the same purpose and the same goal, then we can work together, right? Obviously, things could be done a little different from a left president than from a right president. So if Trump sets up something that's gonna work, and then he can't have the time to reach it, then the next president should work a little bit towards that if it helps the people, the American people,
well, that's
right?
the thing, right?
But then it becomes into an individual's perspective, right? Because it's like you have, a lot of Republicans, are going against Trump. A lot of Republicans don't like Trump, and don't like his policies or what his intentions are. But going back to what you were saying about you want to know what the plan is, isn't he kind of laying down what he's going to do or what his plans and intentions are with the results?
Oh, I haven't seen any. I've been looking, again, like I said, after the whole, I want to read the budget to see what the plans are for the veterans specifically. I know that I was glancing at it last night and I saw that there is going to also be aid for Ukraine. Don't quote me on that, but I think I even saw
it's in there.
Yeah,
that's why some of the Republicans didn't want to pass this bill, because they're like, that fucking money's still in there.
Yeah.
And they were still funding stuff they found in Doge. They were like, I thought this was the whole point.
I was like, Doge, yeah. And so we were talking about it one day before I was working out. I was like, my problem with Doge, I don't have too big of a problem with Doge, except that everything that you're doing is offset by now you have a $400 million contract with Tesla for armored Teslas. Why are we getting armored Teslas? You don't think that that's
wasn't that already set up though, way before the Doge thing? Yeah, that was set up way before even Doge started. And then,
but why? So even before Doge, I want to know why we.
But who's giving them that money? It's coming from USA.
That was
it's part of our budget.
For Tesla.
Armored Tesla. Why do we need armored Teslas?
I mean,
that's what I want to tell
are
me.
They for military?
No, I don't know. We can look it up right now.
So even if it's before Doge, again, the whole point of Doge is to make the government more efficient and not have all this random, corrupt spending or this random, expenditure that is not efficient. And then the first thing we do is get, armored Teslas. Why do we need them?
He says there's no plans to fulfill the contract.
So again, afterwards,
that's NPR.
What I heard is that it they changed it. It's still, so if you look up armored electric vehicles, there's still a contract for $400 million for electric.
Because I know they had done some like school buses, like electric school buses, and spent I don't know how many.
the mail
cars,
trucks,
and only made 4 out of them.
Biden spent like $40 million making 4 electric mailbox.
Why?
That's what I'm saying.
It doesn't matter. Like to me, again, it doesn't matter whether it was.
But
Biden
it's
or
either
side.
It's
Right.
money
It's a dumb
laundering,
spending.
right? Like, do you think they really spend $40 million in 4 trucks?
No,
They
no, that's
just
what
said that.
Yeah.
Right.
But
So-
it's
go ahead.
it's because they have their pockets are lined with the energy companies.
Mm-hmm.
My whole, again, like I said, but if Doja's whole point is like to again have these, because you guys talked about like the shrimp on a treadmill, right? Like what is this? No one wants. No one wants to know.
all these scientific testing.
Yeah.
And they don't even tell us why. Really?
Yeah, that's what I want to
They're
know.
just
I want
like,
to know. Okay, fine. I'm gonna spend, half a billion. I'm gonna spend $500 million on armored vehicles for this and this and this reason.
Right.
And then it's perfectly outlined. I know why. It's
Well, it
our
goes
money.
back to that, like him wanting to get bills done on one
paper.
page.
Transparency, I think, is super important. Like, have transparency with me. Hey, like, tell me, hey, we cannot budget for children's libraries this year, but we're gonna make a really good effort to budget for children's, libraries next year. We can't do it this year because we have to prioritize school buses.
Right.
Right? Like, I know that we don't have the money for everything. We're trying to get there, right? We don't have the money for our Houston roads are terrible,
Right.
right? Like, we don't have the money for everything, but also if it's not a priority this year, it needs to be a priority next year because you have to be fair to all your constituents, whether they're red, whether they're, blue, whether they're purple. You do have to take care of everybody's needs, I feel like.
Well, see, and I feel like, again, this is where we've lost control of what the country was based on, which was a small government, and then the states run themselves.
Right.
And it's the most simplistic way, which made perfect sense back then, and it can make sense now. Obviously, we have more people, but Texas knows what Texas needs better than Washington, D.C. Same for New Mexico, same for Indiana, wherever you are, and if that power gets pulled away from the government, and the government's only intentions are, we're going to protect us, protect our borders. I don't know, what else would you want the big government to do?
well,
I think like for me, so 2 things. Like, again, we have the other thing that I'm gonna look in the budget is special needs, right? So like people who have disabilities or who need that. I mean, people who are obviously also collecting like Social Security already, or like, again,
I'm down with
federal,
special needs
yeah,
because those are families that
they
still
need
chose
federal funding.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they still chose to have the family. They didn't want to get rid of their child, and they do need a little extra help, and there might not be a parent or a family that can help with that. So I don't see any issue with that. I'm with that.
So again, but that's just something personal that because we experience it, we are like, that's important to me, and I would want federal funding for that. But I'm sure that there's other families that have things that are just as important that I'm not thinking about because it's not, personally affecting me, right? So again, it's the one thing that comes to my mind, but I'm sure that other families have things.
To me, that's still local.
Yeah.
That can't be done with one arm of the government. To me, that's local Houston needs and charities and all that, or within your community, within your church, within your school district, or even within your school. Because I talked about this before, but they did this No Kid Goes Hungry at DC, and they issue all this food out, and none of it gets eaten because it's shitty food, it's fucking trash, and then B, it's just like, it's not all the kids needed it. So, but each school's allotted, I don't know how many thousands of dollars that, again, that just goes to more government waste.
Yeah.
But had they say like, all right, wherever your kid's school is, we need y'all to find who are the kids who are here who actually need the help. And then, all right, look, we only have to spend $300 a week, and we make sure they get fed.
Be more efficient, yeah. So the intention was good,
right?
The execution was what was shitty.
Not actually issuing out like actual food, but going to the school like, these are this is the money that you're allotted to buy lunches for this amount of kids who actually need it because they applied and they qualified.
Mm-hmm.
They're under a certain threshold, so these kids get free lunches.
Mm-hmm.
Which is how it's done, I think, here in H. I used to get free lunches all the time, right? And I would eat every single thing except if sometimes the milk would be bad.
Yeah.
I
Well, I
would open
mean,
it and take that first swig and I'm like, oh
Yeah.
God, this is
It's not
terrible.
the best
Yeah.
quality.
Yeah,
but-
so it's
mean,
not the best
yeah.
quality, but if you're hungry,
Yeah.
it's gonna taste like a Michelin star, you know?
But there's like I also watch videos where like in Japan and
They're
they
cooking
have a
their
chef.
own food.
Yeah, they have a chef that makes the food there.
Don't even get me
And
started.
the
Well,
food's
in
cheaper.
In France, dude.
Yeah.
They had like 3-course meals, and the kid, even one of the kids said it like, "Well, education is important if you're well nutrition.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, your
Like,
nutrition
your
is
brain
on
works
point.
better.
They got a little creme brulee.
focus
too.
But how
Yeah,
big
yeah.
are these schools? One chef for the whole school?
True.
Yeah, how big are the schools? What's the infrastructure? Again, I think that we do need to focus on our infrastructure.
But also, look
Yeah.
at Japan. You
Yeah.
can't. So it's hard to compare like
Yeah.
our country to Japan because Japan is so small.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and
But
they
why
have-
not compare it to Southside Houston, to Eastside Houston? And because I think it's like we're doing top down instead of bottom up.
Yeah.
So like here, we'll just use this area for example. Each school probably has per grade maybe 700-800 kids. So that's a lot of kids to feed. But again, like if you have programs set up where you're having these chefs in chef school
come out and like cook for the kids. Yeah,
like there's
You can
creative
have
ways we
conversations.
can do it.
You very creative, and again, that's what I think is so important for again that purple discussion to happen, right? Because then you come together, creative mind. I mean, there's so many smart people out there. If you
They're not in
just got
government.
together,
That's all I have to say. They're not in government. They're in our local communities.
Yeah.
But it's also
But how do you
like-
get funding for that, right? Because not good foods are, again, we talked about it's not cheap right now.
But that's just because somebody sets those prices, right?
Mm-hmm.
Somebody, I mean, we could function not only as a country, but as a world
Yeah.
if we would prioritize education, but what comes with
Nutrition.
education? Nutrition, physical condition,
Yeah.
So, kind of like how you saying you as a personal individual, you want the government or Trump to say, okay, this is what I'm going to do and this is the outcome. Everybody, if we cater to everybody's individual perspective or expectations, then that changes things,
Yeah.
But as a big, you look at it as a big group, Trump as a whole, as a president of the nation, he can't please and satisfy everybody, right?
You have to go within the community, which I understand.
Yeah, but if
again,
the
you get funding.
But if the intentions are to improve the country and to improve individuals or families, I mean, then that's a good goal. But if there's an opposite side that wants to fatten their pockets, that wants to worry about money or prioritizing their income, then that is corruption.
Yeah, that's corruption.
Well, that's always
Plus,
going to be a
and how do we,
problem.
as the people, how do we fight back? How do we get things back to what they were or what they were supposed to be from the start?
I mean, I think that and no one likes to hear about regulations, right? But I think that there should be laws in place that don't allow politicians to get kickback, because then that the people who are leaders are truly leaders because they want to be leaders and they want to have an impact on their communities versus I'm getting into politics to get rich.
Yeah.
I feel like no one should get into politics to get
money,
rich.
right.
But,
Well,
but we
But
don't
that's
have
exactly
that.
that's what we have. That's what we
Original
have.
politicians, they didn't have a salary.
Yeah. It was a service job.
They would go. It was like a weekend, like a National Guard. They would go go to the Capitol and do their job, and then they would come back and go to work.
But like a small town, right?
Yeah.
It was like the mayor's also
It was
the
a
police
regular-
chief. I mean, the fire
Yeah.
chief or whatever. And
But I mean, to me that sounds genius because
Yeah,
then you're dealing
'cause
with
you're
a
still-
real person who's living a real life.
But you also have to be realistic too. Like that's never going to happen
True.
nowadays. So what a good
Why couldn't
compromise,
it?
because it'd have to be like a overthrow of the government kind of thing.
No, I mean,
The officials are too deep, and they hold their
too
position too
many
strong.
powerful figures.
Yeah.
But you could, as a nation, say, "Hey, we don't want lobbyists anymore. We don't want
we want
you to
term
hold.
limits.
Yeah, we want
Term limits. Yes,
we
That
want
could-
money out of
around the table.
But, that would take literal act of Congress. They
Right.
would have to be voting. Hey,
Against
we
themselves.
We are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Who's
But-
going to do that?
Yeah.
But there are some guys out there. But to me, like the whole answer to the recipe is kind of what we're trying to do here is bring the two sides. Is like, look, left and right, y'all, we both have really good points, but to the extreme of each one, we can't come together by just saying, no, I'm not going to give up this. And realizing the way to give it up is to give up the government power.
Yeah.
And for us to be like, all right, you know what? If I agree with what you're saying and I agree with you agree with what I'm saying a little bit, like we can move together in the middle, but we have to work together on the ground level.
Yeah.
And then that's also by putting people in positions in the government that are willing to say, you know what, if you elect me, I am going to go for the term limits, or I am going to get money out of politics. It's not going to, again, nothing's going to happen overnight.
Like term limits and no investing.
But like, you know, the ground level, let's
insider trading,
Let's think about Houston, right? Houston is so big, and we have so many communities, right? And they're all fighting for resources, right? Who gets to decide what is allotted? Why, you know, again, definitely in like the richer neighborhoods, you see their stuff is always taken care of, right? Is that because they pay higher taxes? Is that how it's allotted? And again, that's not something that I personally know, right? So then how do we make sure that the underserved populations are also receiving the portion of the pie? I mean, they're paying less. So are they receiving less? Are they going to keep receiving less? Are we going to not, you know, build up that particular community? Right? So personally, because I grew up in East End Houston, right? When, you know, it's before, now it's being gentrified, but before it used to be a strongly lower income, right? Hispanic area.
Still is. I would say.
Yeah, I mean, it still is.
Southeast, yeah.
So, well, Southeast definitely, but like the actual East End, you know, I have already started looking for schools for my son. He's only 4, right? And I already know that the schools in that district, the school that we're zoned to, does not have the resources that, you know, my son needs. So it either A, is going to force us to find like a private school, right? Or again, 2, move out of the community. Right. And so again, like I don't want to. Ideally, I would want the resources, because I feel like we pay pretty high taxes, and now that it's actively being gentrified, I know that there's some major taxes going into that area. So where is that money going? Right. Yeah.
It's rough. Who speaks for the community, right? Like, is there like an appointed community leader or somebody?
So there's a lot, like
there's a regular person, you know, that can go in there and say, hey, no, like we need more money here.
You have your local council, right?
But we're taught to think national down.
Right.
That's what I'm trying to say.
So see,
it has to be local up.
Because like, for instance, for me, right? Okay, I can only speak for myself. Like talking to you guys, talking to you, like you've made me look at things differently, you know, and to understand things differently, because my whole life, I'm in my 40s, you know, I really never really cared because it seemed like this complicated things to get into politics and community and stuff, which it is, right? But I think that's the problem. Like a lot of people are like me; they don't care, or we don't want to get involved too much, and so this is kind of like what Ruffled Feathers is, you know, like to kind of spread awareness, you know, to kind of wake people up to the reality of things, that we do have power. Like the government is supposed to work for us. You know, and if we start small, like you say, building from the bottom up rather than to try to fix it from the top down, you know, then we could start sharing awareness. Like we have good points that we covered just in this conversation, you know, to also to show people like, hey, look, your voice is important. Your voice can be heard, and like you don't have to suffer anymore or like, you know, struggle or just accept it, because a lot of the times we just accept our reality and just keep on moving and doing what we can as opposed to what we
sometimes
should.
I think that's part of what the American dream should be, is you should be able to just live your life and just know that your government is there for you should you need it, and work and be successful and have your family. You don't not everyone has to be thinking about, like, you know, how to better the world or the country. You always want to better your community, sure, but not everyone has to be out there trying to save the world. You know, just,
but to be informed, right? It's okay to be informed.
It is okay, and I mean it should be, but it shouldn't like have to everybody's focus like on,
right. Not everyone's not everyone here is meant to change the school. Not everyone's here to change the way that.
Right.
But then there's a lot of confusion due to that, because then you have people fighting each other, arguing with one another because they don't understand the bills. They don't understand the terms of certain things, you know, and
that's why my whole plight is on the podcast is not only to always have guests that are like y'all will not be here next time because we're gonna have another set of people who have another perspective and who are still working class people. We'll have celebrities on eventually, and we have those channels to get to that. But I'd rather have the podcast of regular working people because, these conversations don't get to be had by us.
Yeah.
We're only seeing talking heads on every podcast or every news station. And to me, what's more important is just being aware of what's really going on, getting all the story, and then we kind of figure it out on your own.
Bottom up.
And then on the top side is just like, all right, we still have to care about national politics, so we still need to know what they're up to up there, and then just be a little bit more informed, and then kind of move from there.
Yeah, because there is a lot of misinformation and disinformation, and a lot of people absorb that and live their life or go up about their day with that disinformation, and then they're in fear, they're in anxiety. So you don't live properly. You're operating at a low frequency like that, So it's like, that's why Ruffled Feathers says, to kind of, I'm learning as I'm going, like you're definitely more informed and you guys are more in tune with what's going on. And it's like, I like to know because for the majority of my life, I'm kind of like, fuck politics, Just because it's like, in my understanding, man, I'm more of I guess, what do you call that? Like somebody that feels things deeply, like I feel empathetic,
Yeah.
So it's like, to me, we don't need governments, like we should be able to have, to be able to govern ourselves, I mean, obviously there has to be a leader and a head and a top, but we've come so far from the beginning of it that it's gotten corrupted through power, through money, through
it's kind of like religion. We talk about
chiefs.
this. Like sometimes faith starts first in here, right? And then you seek out, either a religion or you seek out like a church and stuff like that. And so again, first and foremost, it's what you're kind of like feeling on the inside.
Intuition.
Yeah, you're into it. Yeah, I think that's pretty valid. I mean, I definitely believe that me and Zach are living the American dream, like 100%, without a doubt. And I just want to protect that for other people. Again, I, definitely benefited from, affirmative action, right? And so again, seeing that kind of dismantled kind of hurt my feelings. And I felt that it was unfair for people who might not have that, opportunity to also benefit from affirmative action or, DEI and stuff like that, because, again, my on paper resume was not as great because I had to work 2 jobs. I didn't have the ability to access some of those resources that some of my counterparts might have had at that time. And so again, on paper, I might not look as qualified. And then all of a sudden, through affirmative action or like DEI and stuff like that, like I'm going to have the opportunity to
Do you know that you were hired because of affirmative action?
I wasn't hired. So again, when
got into the school?
To a certain degree, yes. Again, my scores were not as great. And so when I had a conversation with like one of my other, at the time, classmates, she and I kind of got into a little bit of, a tiff about like what scores and grades. And it should just be based off grades, and it should be based off your, scores and have nothing to do with whether,
But your counselor didn't specifically say, hey, we're going to accept you not because of your...
they're not going to say that, but...
So it's hard to know for sure, but likely the case was.
Yeah, likely the case was because, you know what the interview process is like, right? That your scores might not be very strong and stuff like that. And I think intuitively, a lot of it was by faith, right? So I strongly feel that it was definitely affirmative action, right? And I think
because I coming from another Hispanic person, like I've never wanted to feel like I was in a position because of my color. I've always wanted to feel like I was in a position because I can do the job.
Yeah.
And I worked in retail, right?
Yeah.
But shouldn't it be like that?
Well, that's my whole argument against DEI or affirmative action is because it degrades. If it were me, it degrades my feeling that I was there because of my abilities. Now,
I felt empowered, right? And I think a lot of it is because I felt like someone had my back, right? Because again, like I said, I did not have certain strong qualifications.
Well, I think her argument is that like in a generalized way, on her grades, she had a B in one class or whatever. I'm just generalizing, but then versus the other person who had straight A's, and then she was selected because of the DEI to check a box, right? Essentially, but in truth, like they were both equal in as far as skill and ability.
Right. Skill and ability. So again,
and y'all interview too, or is just based off of papers?
No, it's interview, right?
Okay.
So again, what my social skills are like, what other qualifications I have, like, am I personable? Like, there's a lot of things that I think you can't see on paper. Right. I mean, think about how Trump got elected the first time he ran, right? Trump got elected without any qualifications against Hillary Clinton, who had a whole bunch of qualifications. So if you're basing a choice based off of like what your qualifications are, sometimes the least qualified person might do the job better. And that's how a lot of people felt when they voted for Trump, right? He had less qualifications than Hillary Clinton, right? But people still felt that he could get the job done. And I think that, again, based off of paper, sometimes you can't see a whole picture. I never felt, and again, what I told my classmate, I was like, we're getting the same grades now. I'm not lesser than you now, right? It's really what helped me get in the door.
Right.
Because now I'm accomplishing and doing the exact same things that you are, right? There's nothing that you're doing necessarily better than I am at this point in time, right? It's just that what helped me kind of get in the door. And so again, I love studying medical anthropology, and I still love studying anthropology in general. And most people are likely to either hire someone who looks like them, acts like them, and honestly, that's normal. Yeah. Don't you trust people who I think
we're very tribal?
Yeah, we're very
it's
tribal.
Inevitable. It's like
If you're a bro, you're more likely
That's
to like a bro.
System.
Yeah,
that can go sour. But to me, okay, maybe I don't understand DEI, right? But
so DEI, it stands for
diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Yeah, right. But that literally can give somebody a job that just because the way they look, the color of their skin, can get a position.
Or their gender.
Or their gender. And that is very dangerous.
It is very dangerous, but I think as a we're consuming things, right? We vote with our dollars and stuff like that. And sometimes I think that for me personally, someone who understands me more can better serve my needs as a Hispanic now also, even when I'm looking for let's say an OB-GYN or a midwife, I'm looking for someone who looks more like me because I feel like they're going to be able to understand me more. And that's just like human nature, right? And I think to offset some of our human natureness, sometimes that's why some of those programs are important, because it also allows, someone who doesn't fit a mold to be able to have a voice for people who might not necessarily fit that mold either. So even neurodivergent people, so like people who are autistic, can communicate with other autistic people better. And most people don't feel like they can communicate with an autistic person, right? Because something's just off or something, what I mean?
That's why we like Elon.
That's why so many people
diversity, equity, and inclusion.
So many people dislike.
It has to work both ways.
Yeah,
no.
But I mean, to me,
you should tell him he's a DEI, right?
It kind of sucks that there's a system in place that is meant for that, right? Because I think you said you touched on something earlier where it's like, okay, it could be somebody off the street that doesn't necessarily have the paper trail behind them, but can do the job well and can excel.
Yeah.
Right? But how do you know that, right? Because it's like you might never have the opportunity to interview this guy.
Yeah.
Zach works in the automotive industry, and he's told me so many stories of people who started as porters who are now GMs.
Yeah.
Right? And it doesn't happen often.
Right. But see that's chance and also God. We're God. We believe in God, and we're faith based. So
work ethic.
Work ethic too. Because it's like I got a job at Miracad, and I excelled. Within 9 months, I got, I just kept getting promotions, and I don't have any college. I don't have any experience with CAD and laser scanners and all this stuff. But just the simple fact of my work ethics, you know, I show up to work. I understand. I'm respectful. If I don't know, I'm gonna ask the same question 20 times. Yeah. I think that goes a long way, right? But it's like now that was completely luck. I got placed in that position by luck. My friend gave the resume under the table. The guy interviewed me, would like me, because I mean, I know how to sell myself, and me personally, I like to be honest, I tell you exactly what my pros and cons are, and I think that in its own, it's a good quality, but we were getting people that had college degrees and experience 2 years in this that sucked. They didn't, they didn't want them.
Exactly. That's
and they were from all varieties of races.
It's a interview and versus paper. Like you're gonna see a huge difference. Who can sell themselves a little bit more? So maybe maybe it had nothing to do with who I am. Color wise, or maybe it was just that I could sell myself really well, which is
but then why are
true.
people so upset with the DEI firings? Because a lot of these people weren't competent, right?
Yeah, well, that's kind of my whole point.
Maybe not everyone, but some were.
But that's my whole point. Is just like if we're gonna base everything off of race, gender, and sex, then we lose the merit side.
Yeah.
That's why I'm saying like you probably just kicked ass on your interview compared to these other people, and now you're saying you think you just got it because of the color of your skin, and to me that demotes your actual drive and desires and capabilities.
So it feels like you're cutting yourself, selling yourself short.
No, but I think that again, if they, for example, they might have just given me the interview for that, right? That just got me in the door. I'm not saying that that's, to me, I've never felt that it lessened my accomplishments. It just gave me the opportunity. And again, there are a lot of grants out there for women of color, for
all types,
disability. There's all kinds of stuff out there. And again, that's just really meant to not to give you an edge, but to level the playing field for you. Especially again, like I said, I work 7 days a week all through undergrad. Of course, I wasn't going to have some of the same grades that some of my counterparts have. Of course, I wasn't going to have the same scores, right? There's only so much I can do in a 24-hour period, right?
But those grants and scholarships are still there. And a company can still choose to do DEI if they want. They're just
not if it's not federally. If they want, but now there's no
funded.
incentive. Yeah, exactly. Now there's not an incentive. So many people have just dropped it because again, that's what talks to me, right? So the fact that because you got funding, you did it, not because you felt that it was in the best interest of your community, is what pisses me off. That you only did it for the money and then you don't care about these communities. So did you know that the Hispanic dollar in the US is the fastest growing GDP? We're actually, just the Hispanic dollar in America is the 5th largest GDP in the world. It's in the trillions and it's stronger than some countries' economies. The Hispanic dollar. So again, so many people make money off of the Hispanic community and don't respect the Hispanic community. That's my problem.
That's just in America though.
But also, how does
that's again?
Hold on. I have a question about that.
I love America,
but we're not talking about the peso.
No. But that's what I'm saying.
Is that tracked by Hispanic wealth? Or
that's tracked by the consumer. So if you go to like the government website, it's tracked by how much we're consuming, how much we're making. So we have younger population. So there's a younger Hispanic population.
I was about to say.
Right. We have a strong work ethic. We have strong
family ties, work ethic. But this all plays to not so much because what I love about growing up Hispanic is we never blamed anybody for anything that happened to us.
Yeah, no, we just kept going.
Yeah. We just keep going.
Yeah. And you hustle, you bust your ass.
Yeah. And there's none of that like, oh, well, it's because I was this or it's because of that. And this is what we're teaching society right now is like everything that didn't happen good for you is because of the evil white man or because they didn't like your skin color or because you were gay or because you were this. Yeah. And we're generating this society of just complainers.
Yeah.
And that's not in our blood to be like that. And this is what pisses me off most about the current day and age is everyone's just wants to point the fingers instead of the personal responsibility of like, hey, I should have worked harder, or you know what, I knew I was doing wrong, or I should have just pulled over. You know, like
it's just
I think that again, being accountable is definitely something that needs to be reiterated, right?
No, that should be like priority number one.
Being accountable
as a growing up human, like that should be a human. You know, like we're responsible to hold ourselves accountable. But
I know millennials and boomers that are not accountable.
Right.
That's I think a personal trait. That doesn't have to be a Gen Z thing. I've seen boomers who are not accountable. Who everything that they do is someone else's fault.
Yeah.
Right. And so again, I think that can sometimes be a personality trait and not necessarily a trait of like Generation Z or like the new.
Yeah, it's a personality trait, but it's perpetuated on a grander scale, I think.
But today is being glorified.
Yeah.
Today is like it's okay to be weak. It's okay to be sensitive. It's okay to be gentle and
it's okay to have anxiety.
Yeah.
It's okay to talk about your anxieties every day. And you're in that constant state of like, okay, I do have anxiety.
And it's not that it's not okay, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like it's valid. I mean, we are fragile individuals.
But not to victimize yourself as well.
Right, but also
I think,
to use it as a crutch or as a
Yeah,
disability.
that's
Because it's like we are, as humans, you know, and as growing up men and women, we are required to improve.
Yeah.
We are obligated to improve and to get better. You know, now, unless you have a mental disability or some kind of block that stops you from doing that, we are required, what was the word I just used? Obligated.
Yeah.
We are obligated to improve and to grow, you know? So it's like, and I can only speak from a Hispanic perspective, like we're taught like, okay, it's handed down, the work is handed down, you know? Like my dad would wake me up at Saturday morning, hey, you're gonna come with me and cut grass. So I learned my work ethic. That's the only thing that I can say my dad showed me. It was a work ethic. It was an ass back breaking, sweat breaking, you know? But it taught me that you got to get out there and get it, like, you know, and it's like no complaining. You do it. If you're sick, you do it sick. If you're sad, you do it sad.
But you see, I think that can also be a double-edged sword. So we are work meals for other people, right?
Yeah.
Like we are making money for other people.
For sure.
Right? We're cogs in a bigger system. Some people, we value ourselves by the productivity that we do. And is that necessarily how we should value ourselves? Because we've all gone to work sick.
That's just a portion of your value.
Yeah.
Of yourself.
Again, but
we're all work mules for.
Yeah, you're right.
Absolutely. For ourselves.
But see,
ourselves,
but look, okay. So now, from a Hispanic background, like I was taught, like my dad was a butler for a rich family, right? So I was taught unintentionally that I was lower. Right? That I have to be of service. That I always have to be ready and prepared to serve the people above, you know? But in my mind, I was like, no, I'm an equal. Like, I want to make just as much money, if not more money than him.
Yeah.
And so, but it's still that is embedded in me, and it kept me at a lower level because I was like, okay, I'm okay making $20 an hour. I'm okay making $25. I'm making $30 an hour. Now I'm balling.
Yeah.
But see, it was something that was embedded in me, and it was bad. It was wrong, you know, because then it created a limit in the tap where I could excel. You know, like now I'm like, okay, well now I know I could do more. You know, and it's like now with the internet and like with stuff you could do on e-commerce, there's possibilities for everybody, right? But when you were talking about the Hispanic dollar, it's because of those parents that busted their ass and then they gave a better life to their children. So they started working at 12, 13, 14, 15 with them. And then now at 18, they could buy their little car. Yeah. Now they can buy and pay taxes. You know, now they're getting, and it's like they have a more understanding and value of money, how to save it, how to build it. You know, and maybe that's why the Latino dollar goes up higher. Because
I completely agree. Like, I completely agree that, again, I was born and raised in Texas, fully American, but I respect, you know, all the values that I was taught. Work ethic is great. I mean, almost to a fault, though. Like, again, I don't feel like I've accomplished anything if I haven't been productive. Like, that's almost a sin to not do anything, to take a rest, right?
It's your best and worst trait.
The best and worst trait.
That's
right?
a double-edged sword.
And so, again, you know, we, you know, my biggest, again, point with like us having that strong growth in like GDP and dollar, right, is that, you know, to me, you do have to give it to the Hispanic community, right? That if they're growing that much, if they're consuming that much, like, what are we doing right? Right? And then why are we not seeing that being reflected on my feed, right? Like, why are we not talking about how the Hispanic community is doing so well? Or, you know, how come all I'm seeing is negative things associated with the Hispanic community? Which is kind of where like my strife is, like, where's that disconnect of like seeing how much growth we're having?
It's because that's not what sells. It's
not what sells.
Yeah, no positivity is on the feed usually.
Yeah, but also like, what is the limit? You know, like the GDP is what is the definition?
Profit.
So see now we're talking in groups again, because it's like kind of like, okay, if the Hispanic community's dollar is, it's like, when does it why are we separated? Why aren't we Americans, right? Because it's like if you're a Hispanic in America, you're an American. I mean, it's like.
So statistically, they just always ask, like, what's your income, like what race are you, So like, it's just for metrics, right? Like, they know that 84% of all American wealth is owned by, you know, white people, and in a white household, 1 out of 5 of those households are going to be millionaires. I mean, that's a huge, discrepancy. It's also because white people have been here the longest and been allowed to have like their wealth grow the longest. Money just grows. Money grows. If you save it and you let it grow, money will make you money. Yeah. Right. And so again, we're getting to that point where now I was never financially literate, right? I made myself financially literate to let my money grow and be able to pass something down in generational wealth, hopefully, to, my child. And so I actually made Zach go with me to a financial, not seminar, I guess workshop. Where we were just kind of like taught a little bit about how like the market works and how to make your money grow over a period of time and stuff like that. And one of the biggest things that they say is that the media is going to scare you all the time. The market's going to crash. It's not going to correct itself. Sell your money now, sell these, get into this. And if you follow what the media says, you're probably going to lose money. Yeah. Don't do it. Yeah. Right. So I think that across the board,
they sell the story. Yeah.
It sells the story. So again, I always kind of look at media with like a strong lens because that they're just trying to sell the story. Yeah. Right. So again, I didn't look too much into the gross domestic product of like the Hispanic community, except that I went to a event with my mother, who is also an entrepreneur. She owns a commercial cleaning business, and me having my own practice. We were invited to an event set up by Chase JP Morgan for the Hispanic community, right? And I think it kind of like made me proud to be a holder in Chase doesn't make you a lot of money if you just have like a checking with them. You need to do online banking to get a 4%. But I was like kind of proud to be, structured with Chase because I saw them putting these events for the Hispanic community and trying to, hey, you're getting money now, become more financially literate, which I think is super important. And I think that, again, if you look at it through that lens, it's to separate and see, just give you more information. I'm always good about, I want to see the stats. I want to get the information. It's not that I want to be like necessarily divided, but I want to know a little bit more about myself, right? Hispanics are more likely to end up with diabetes. That's a cool fact that to kind of like see what your sugar levels are and always kind of get checked. I don't think that it's necessarily meant to be divisive and say, oh, well, Hispanics do this and we're all American. It's meant to just give you, I think, a little bit more information about yourself because you are more susceptible to certain things. Like, again, as a Hispanic, you're more susceptible to
just
diabetes.
Culturally, our diets it's a cultural thing. So the diabetes is going to come of the cultural diet, right? But I think what you were asking earlier is like, why is the Hispanic community growing so much? And I see it as because of what we talked about earlier. Is we are more family oriented people. Yeah. We do believe in the structure of the mom and dad at home, even though it's not like that in every Hispanic family. Yeah. That structure is still set up to where you're asking, you have the family there to help you when times are hard, or they're telling you shut the fuck up, get to work, and they're instilling those values in here. And that's what we're losing as a society because of these other ideas that are not as I guess profitable in this scenario for just the mind. If we're telling all these Gen Zers like the world's scary out there, stay home. If we're telling them you're never going to get anywhere because of the color of your skin, stay home. If we're telling them, anxiety is real, just keep talking about it and it's going to get better. It's not, like you're never going to experience life without experiencing life. And as Hispanic families and many other families outside the Hispanic culture, they understand the only way to fucking do it is to go and try it. Yeah. And we're losing that message.
That go get it. Yeah. I think that's true. I think more and more fear is definitely propagated in like, again, media and all, and your socials. I do suffer from a little bit of, I'll see something I'm like, Zach. And Zach is like, oh my God.
Can spiral easily.
I can spiral easy. I'll wake him up. Hey, when Roman's driving at 16, my kid's 4. Like, he's like, what are you talking? Like, that's not even, they won't even have that car then. You know what I mean?
I'm like, wait, what? Maybe he gets his license. I'm like,
he's like, he's already asleep.
I'm like, it's 3 a.m. What's going on?
I was having a good dream.
I was having a good, no, definitely. I will say that for me, it's like, I didn't used to suffer from anxiety, and it was when I had Roman that I started to feel like I suffered from anxiety. And I think it's because I couldn't self-medicate. I would always drink. I'd come home, take a little wine glass, take a little, just to take the edge off. And it was when I had my son that I was like, I can't self-medicate with a beer or two I'm breastfeeding. Like, it made me realize that I was probably just not.
But I don't think you're suffering from it, right? Suffering is like where you.
It's crippling. I'm not crippled by it, but
like
I'm just a little more aware of it. And so I know, hey, am I really mad at Zach?
Right.
Or is it just my anxiety? So again, to me, if you take all these things and you let it cripple you, yes, right? Like you're going to say, yes, a person of color, because statistically, a Hispanic woman Hispanic women and Black women make the least amount of money in the U.S. Statistically speaking. If I took that and said, well, I'm never going to make any money, I wouldn't be a dentist, right? Like if I took, I have an autoimmune. Statistically, I was meant to like get RA and like not be able to be a dentist. And, if I would have let that and be like, well, I have an autoimmune since I was 12. I'm going to have MS later or RA later, I shouldn't even try, then I would not be in the position that I am now. I think that if you grab this information, right, and you catastrophize it and you let it cripple you, for me, information is power. So I want to know, right? I want to know what my stats are. I might not necessarily affect them, but it lets me change the way that I do things. So yes, I have an autoimmune. Yes, I'm more likely to develop another like autoimmune disease. How do I stop that from happening?
So that's what anxiety is meant to. It's a survival.
It's meant for survival. Anxiety is not bad, right?
Yeah, we need it.
You let it.
That's what it's meant to do. Is meant to. Hey, this might happen to me, so I need to fix it. It's a self-correction, right? Yeah. It's a little bit of a self-correction, and I think that we shouldn't villainize, all this information. I think that we should not allow it to cripple you. You just need to know how to use it. Not just like, oh, I'm going to be
to empower you. I'm
going to be prejudiced against, so I'm just not going to. I'm just going to start hating on the police.
Yeah.
Right. Well, you got to use logic too. Right. I mean, because it's like I think more worry maybe is more healthier than anxiety, because anxiety is like a constant state of like, what if?
Well, you're not supposed to be in it always.
Right. But see, worry then it's kind of like a possibility of like a very possible future, and how do you avoid it, right? Yeah. Like how do you avoid a situation?
It's like a healthy dose of paranoia.
Preparation.
Right.
Yeah. So like anxiety also can be not necessarily what's happening in social media, but something imbalanced in our body. So like the expert that I was following, she says that, if you don't eat for your hormones, your sex hormones, you're gonna end up having some anxiety, right? So like for women, if you eat for your hormones, you're supposed to eat more sugar towards like the end of your menstrual cycle and more keto friendly at the beginning of your cycle, because estrogen doesn't like sugar spikes, and progesterone does like sugar spikes. If you have an imbalance, your cortisol levels are going to be high, right? And again, as women, we also love our little coffees, right? We're doing all the bad things that just make our anxiety levels go up.
Which comes back to the nutrition, right?
Nutrition. So again, we always, I think that a lot of times these things are multifactorial. So not necessarily just like the media, not necessarily just the Starbucks, right? Not necessarily just the hormones, but I think a combination of all those things to just skyrocket, the way that you feel and amplify. You were saying amplify. Everything is being amplified, and just kind of.
We get attacked from all angles, because even like music, even the music we listen to, like it could have a frequency. But it's true though, because I mean, it's just like, well, you're talking about the stuff that
you listen to Beyonce?
No.
I don't. I mean, I'll.
She had a moment, but yeah, she sucks.
Do you listen to Spanish rock by any chance?
No.
Oh man, I've been into Spanish rock.
So I varied some of the old stuff like Maná and
I don't like
Café Tacuba and stuff.
But there's the new Ladrones, man. They have some hard stuff, and I just I've been listening to that. I was like, maybe that's a really bad frequency for me to be on, because I'm just like.
Yeah.
The whole time.
That's good.
In moderation, everything's good, because even movies, TV shows, they create emotions for us. Yeah.
Statistically, actually, rock and heavy metal is supposed to calm you down.
Like, well, because it lets you release.
It lets you release. And so
it's just like playing sports or boxing. Even though it's violent, you are releasing that. Mm-hmm. But I think the moral of the story right here, and we're kind of like all summarizing, is just like everything we're getting is is good and it can be bad if we
Yeah.
just take it with a little skepticism.
Yeah.
And then but don't overdose on it.
Yeah.
And then just kind of be observant of everyone and not try to step on the other people's toes or be in their business, and then kind of just live your own life. I think at the end of the day, we won't ruffle so many feathers and we can kind of live in peace, because that's really what I want.
No, you were trying to ruffle the whole point.
No, I'm here to ruffle feathers.
That's what we
I'm here to ruffle them so that you can come back down.
Ruffle your own feathers.
Yeah. Well, the purpose of Ruffled Feathers is to have the difficult conversations, right? To have these conversations where we have some stuff that we agree on, we have some stuff that we don't agree on, but we're still human and we're still we're still family.
We still vibe. Yeah.
And also we want good, we don't have any ill intentions. We don't want malicious, what is it? Results for anybody or how do we make our lives better? But it's also it's easy to keep your home at peace and keep your home where you want it. But then you got your sister. Okay, how can I help my sister's home get at peace? How can I help your friends? And awareness. Again, we go back to awareness, because it's okay, be a critical thinker. Think deep. If you hear something, okay, it sounds weird. It sounds. Look it up, research it, and if it's something worth stressing about, then stress over it. But also talk to like-minded people and understand, get different perspectives and
unlike-minded people.
True.
I feel like if you can have an honest conversation with two completely different people, in the end, the fundamentals they agree upon, right?
Yeah.
Everybody agrees upon most of the same thing, unless you're just a sociopath
or a radical.
You're chemically imbalanced,
right?
I think
Asperger's.
Yeah.
But it's this is something that we can't control that, right? But it's there's people that are rational people that, and again, I hate to use this example, that hate Trump, and then you can't meet them in the middle just because they're not willing to listen to you because they.
But if we were to get a far radical left person, but who was willing to just actually have a conversation and talk and have disagreements. Yeah. But then in the end, he'd be like, yeah, actually, I do want that for my family, but I just don't agree that the Trump administration is going to provide that.
Right.
So we basically want the same thing. Just
so don't hate me for thinking like this. Yeah. That's the whole point.
I mean, it's like who's your favorite football team?
The Steelers.
Okay, I like the Steelers. Let's just say what's the other one? What's the Steelers' rival?
The Ravens.
Okay, so say I was a Ravens fan, and we have more stuff in common, but we don't like each other because you like the Steelers. Yeah. I'm a Ravens fan. You're a Steelers fan. We're gonna have some shit to say, but then we're gonna walk out and have a beer.
Right?
Yeah. Right. But you like football.
Yeah.
Right?
Dudes in tights.
You like barbecue?
Yeah,
we're gonna cook.
Yeah.
See?
Someone owes a pork belly.
Run the smoker.
No, I completely agree again. And I think just having that, so Zach, the other day, he was saying how he was like, I shouldn't have gotten that COVID vaccine. I shouldn't have gotten it. I wouldn't have died. I'm a healthy male, just puffed out his chest. I'm not going to die. And I was like, baby, you forget that I have an immunocompromised body. I'm taking an immunosuppressor. We had an infant at home. Yes, you wouldn't have died. It would have been your wife or your small infant child, right? Yeah. And I was like,
it's a could have. Yeah. But, I mean, you never know what God has in store.
I mean, but I'm sure the person who just lost a child to the measles, right, is wishing that they would have just vaccinated their kid, right? Because the outcome is. I mean, it just.
Yeah. That's a whole nother. That's a whole nother podcast. We're not gonna get into that one today because trust me, I'm well.
Bursting, I know. Look at you, get in bed.
Yeah, no. It's the hoodie. But no, I appreciate y'all coming on. I had a good time with y'all.
Thank you. Yeah, it was real great.
Anything y'all want to sign off, tell the world,
Shout outs.
Your next rap album, Zach.
Just be careful of confirmation bias. There's so much information out there. You can just go down a rabbit hole and
and everything differently because you're consistently getting confirmed by the algorithm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Everything could verify however you're feeling at that moment.
Yeah. That's a good point, man. Because that's for both sides.
Yeah. For any perspective.
Yeah. Me and him talked about same. We can be watching the exact same video online, and he's going to get the, bro statements and I'm going to get the feminist statements, right? And we're going to get completely a different take from that same exact video just based on what the algorithm thinks that you want to hear. And so you're more likely to invest and comment and again, we're not so divided, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, and but you covered on a big subject right now, or of our existence, because we are seeing our algorithm is gonna feed what side we
want to
like,
hear,
what we want to hear. So
Yeah.
it's like, and then that is division, because it's like whether we want to or not, whatever our eyes see, they're windows to the soul. We're taking it in, and it does impact our emotions, our mental, our thoughts, So it's okay to be aware of that. Just the simple fact to just be aware, like, okay, what I'm watching is gonna affect me. I still gotta hold my standards and my morals and what I believe in,
Right.
But yeah.
So ask, am I mad at my husband, or is that TikTok video, right? And it's probably the TikTok video.
Yeah. It's got power. It's powerful.
Well, we'll catch you on the
Thank
next
you.
episode. Thank y'all guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.